Hello! Welcome to the Normal America Show. Your host, robnoerr. Tired as shit. I'm very tired today, but that's okay. I had a long night after my stream last night. My poor dog, Dorothy. She's in pain, and she couldn't get up on the bed, and I tried to lift her, and she got really scared. Now, she jumped up on the couch, so then she really wanted someone to hang out with her. She was scared, so I tried to sleep on the couch with her, but you go through surgery and you're hurting. So she's, she's kicking me all night. And so I didn't get much sleep, but that's okay. It was worth it for Dorothy. And she's going to get better every day. So, but it's so weird. Like, you think of it from her perspective, it's like, why'd you guys take me to these monsters that cut me open? And now I hurt. What I do wrong, Mom and Dad? It's like, well, you ate garbage and you got an obstructed bowel. But she doesn't understand English like that. It's sort of like talking to a lefty. Like, you know what I mean? Like the words come out, Oh, Zris is here. Zris, your comment on my video about the word illegal versus illegal aliens is not true, because the criticism that John Fetterman was making was using the term illegal, not illegal alien. And I bet I would be able to easily look up and find examples of Republicans calling illegals that are Russians illegal aliens too. Then what? So no, I don't think that you claim I'm making his point. I'm not. His point was, you use the term illegal to demonize brown people. You don't use that for whites that are here undocumented. And it's like, yes, then you change it to, but what about the term illegal aliens? I don't know. So I just think that you hear that term more when it comes to people that tend to be brown, because the majority of people that are here illegally, particularly the ones that are coming through the southern border, are in fact brown. So I don't know. Well, yeah, the noun illegals would be fine, but let me see the quote I wrote. Or I didn't write, but that Trump made. And again, it took me 3 seconds to look that up. Trump's quote: "These illegal aliens from places like Russia are flooding in." So is your claim, because he uses the word aliens, Trump uses the word aliens as opposed to just illegals? Is that the argument you're making? Because I would think that most people would say the opposite, that the word aliens also implies something even more nefarious. Oh, okay, then I got it backwards, what you're saying. Nah, that's bullshit. I don't think there's any different. Like, if only Republicans would call the illegals illegal aliens, then it would be okay. The problem's taking the word aliens off. No, I don't think so. I think the criticism is deeming someone an illegal person is bad. Anyways, super chats, and then we'll get started with the show. Our buddy Jay Thorpe, $5 says that's a really good point title screen. Chair could never be so elegant. I got a new grift. I'm not even gonna bring the chair on anymore. I'm just gonna put videos up and never go live. Just leave the title screen, and then you all could chat and send money. Brilliant. That's brilliant. Anybody could have a piece of furniture on camera for 2.5 hours and achieve their super chat goal. But only the neurons could reach the goal without even going live, just having the video up there. That's a brilliant grift. I'm gonna have to. Jay Thorpe nailing it there. Naughty Germ, great to hear from you, man. Would have been technically first once I went live, but Jay Thorpe's up in the grifting game. Always a pleasure, Naughty German. Look at this, HAC, $50. Thank you so much. Says, woke up early this morning around 1 a.m. Mountain Time to get ready for work, and all I heard was the whip song in my head. I'm being programmed psychologically, now obsessed with whip songs and Hassan-looking chairs. It's working. I suppose I do an early whip song here. My goodness. Thank you, HAC. Appreciate it. Well, $50. Spin the wheel. I shouldn't even show it. Is there any chance we can get a short one? That would be ideal. Oh, man. Oh, new metal. All right. I have that one. I know I do. Here we go. Enjoy.
Well, there's a way. There's a way.
Or not.
There's a way. Well, there's a whip. Well, there's a way. Well, there's a whip. There's a way, but there's a whip. There's a way, but there's a whip. Why left? Right. Well, there's a whip. There's a way. Well, there's a whip. There's a way. We don't wanna go to war today, but the Lord of the Land says nay, nay, nay. We gotta march all day, all day, all day. There's a whip, there's a way, and there's a whip, wait, there's a way, and there's a whip, wait, there's a way, there's a whip, right, left, right, left, right, left. There's a whip, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. All day and night and marvel, we are the slaves of the dark Lord's war. There's a will with a will, with a will. There's a way. There's a will with a will, there's a way.
Wrap it up, dude. You Slipknot sounded bastard.
There's a will, right, left, right, left, right,
Let's go.
When there's I.
Oh, shit.
We're gonna march all day and night and more, for we are the slaves of the Dark Lord's war.
Thank you. Holy cow. I mean, it is fun. And when we first created the songs, it was fun. But now I'm like, why didn't I put a time limit on this shit? It gets out of control. Like, I'm like a minute and a half in, like, okay, stuff to talk about. Let's move. No. The AI whip guys just keep going on and on and on. All right, here's the link. All right. I'll pin that to the top. What's going on today as far as stories? Well, what do I have down here? There's more clips I could show you from yesterday's hearing on racial districting. New documentary coming out tonight. It's called God Complex, The Rise of America's Censorship Machine. I think it looks very interesting. I know Mike Benz is prominently featured in it. Has to do with USAID and, using it against Americans and other groups that they're attempting to censor. There's this story about FHA loans that I think's maybe worth looking at. Find the right tab to share. Here we go. Taking care of business here. So This is FHA loans to immigrants without permanent residency, including H-1B, right? So you can see going up until you have 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You can see how they massively increase under the Biden years. And then they hit their high point, even under Trump here, May 2025. Then you see this fall off. This was once the FHAs were banned. So we had 6% of all FHA loans were going to people that were non-permanent residents. Now, I talked about this yesterday in the late show. This is going to drive up, like, not just this, but in general, when you have millions upon millions of illegals or people that are here on H-1Bs, etc., that are purchasing homes and they're getting government subsidies and loans to purchase homes, that's going to drive the price of homes up. The demand for homes will fall if there aren't millions of people that are foreign born trying to purchase them. So when you talk about how unaffordable housing is, it's because we don't have enough homes because we've imported all of these people. Can I share the link? Sure. So we talked about that yesterday. But another person comes up with a point that I hadn't even thought of, and that's this guy, Just Loki. I have no idea who he is, but he says, Trump ended FHA loans to H-1Bs on May 25th, but prior to that, it's insane that non-immigrant guest workers were being given loans by the government to buy a permanent residence in the first place. And that is insane. Now, I want you to think about what that means. The purpose of these FHA loans, if I'm not mistaken, is so home buyers could buy permanent residence, not rental properties. In other words, this is a home that you intend on living in. So why would you be giving loans to people that are here on temporary visas? How does that make sense? We bring someone in on a 3 to 5 year H-1B and we give them a subsidized loan to buy a permanent house, and then what? 3 years later, they go back and now they're not allowed to be in the United States, but they own a home? FHA loans are considered subsidized in aspects, but they're self-supporting. The Federal Housing Administration issues mortgages made by private lenders, allowing borrowers to purchase homes with a minimum down payment of 3.5%. This reduces the risk for lenders, enabling more access to home ownership for low and moderate income families, first-time home buyers, and people of color. The Mutual Mortgage Insurance Fund, which covers claims from FHA-insured loans, is primarily funded by upfront and annual mortgage insurance premiums collected from borrowers as well as proceeds from foreclosed properties. It is a government-backed loan to ensure that you could purchase a home at a cheaper down payment. Yeah. Rhiannon gets it. Says, I worked mortgages 12 years. FHA is intended for low income with low credit scores. Most are accompanied with federal or state housing grants for down payment assistance. In other words, we want to give people a chance, young, up-and-coming people, right? So maybe you're a young person that doesn't have a good line of credit or to build up a lot of wealth. Or maybe you're someone whose family, never really owned a home and you always rented and you're trying to up and come and purchase a home. Great. I don't have a problem with a program like that. It makes sense, right? First-time home owners But with programs like these, what you don't want is people gobbling it up and using it as rental properties, right? You don't want BlackRock coming in and, yeah, we'll take a bunch of these loans, that's intended for low-income people. So the fact that as high as 6% of all of these loans being issued in 1 month were to people that were going to be non-permanent is absolutely insane. What's the idea here? What are they trying to accomplish? Did I just say boner? I don't think so. I don't know. So now, instead of those loans going to like low-income Americans, and like, look at how young people talk about this. And it's weird. I remember I listened to this stand-up. Oh my goodness, we get one more super chat here. Jay Thorpe again, $5 says that's a really good point. Title screen. Chair could never be so eloquent. Oh, it bumped that chat down. I don't know, but I agree. And then, Inspiritus, thanks so much. 100 BGNs, whatever that is, but thank you so much. Says, want to support the show. God bless you, Mr. Noor. Thank you. Oh, it's Korik. Thank you, Korik. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate your support. But you're some young people, they talk about things. There's this joke I used to like from this comedian I like, Doug Stanhope. And I remember in his one set, he's like, I think he's talking about like Jimi Hendrix and artists that have died young. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I still got a 3 in front of my name. I think he was 39 at the time. He's like, so if I die, maybe people will still say he was young. But his point, the joke he's making is like, maybe you'd just be shit. Maybe Jimi Hendrix would have been doing like, auto-tune bullshit, it would have been terrible. And people have been like, ugh, this guy used to be the man. You don't know what's going on. Maybe he was out of shit to say, he would have just retired and been like, yep, I'm out. But that idea, I can't consider myself young anymore. I'm 41. So it's a weird thing to say, especially in politics, right? I mean, you got to be 35 to be president. So like when I ran for office in 2019, I was like, I'm a young up-and-comer. Yeah, not so much anymore. A little too much gray in the beard to be bullshitting people that I'm young. So when I say younger people, I don't mean people that are 40 like me, right? But you hear them talk, and I think the data backs this up. Homeownership seems like an out-of-reach dream to many young people. And we could argue how much of it's their fault, blah, 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 blah. Are they entitled? Whatever. I'm just saying that's reality. So how would you feel if loans that were basically designed for people like you are going to people that are coming in on H-1B visas? That's nuts. It seems like everyone's a priority except American citizens. That's what it seems like in all aspects of our government. It's absolutely insane. Anyways, we got some callers. Links pinned up there. We'll give one precursor to the calls. We always have to say it. We're going to follow terms of service. We're not going to use homophobic or racial slurs. We're not going to have calls to violence or any shit like that. I explain why all the time. I'm a little tired, maybe a little cranky today, so you know why. I don't have to tell you. Anyways, by the way, there's a dude named Intel Wild who totally saved Night Shift's ass last night. And so it ended up being a very good night for Super Chats, but only because of one dude decided that he was going to carry the whole team on his back. I was just sitting here, I'm like, leave this dude run the show. He's fucking crushing it. So, Day Shift really has a chance to show Night Shift what for. So let's see if we can get to that Super Chat goal today. Now, first up. Oh, let me say one more thing. Maybe you watch the show. By the way, we have 100 people watching and only 15 likes. Boo! Likes are free. Give a like. Maybe you watch the show and you're like, I don't know. I feel like I'd like to call in, but I don't know. Uh, Trust me, you'll be fine. All you need is a mic. We're not going to do cam checks. And if you click the link, you don't have to download anything. It's pretty simple. It'll have a little thing. It'll ask to put in your name, and it'll ask you to check your mic, and you can test it and everything. I didn't see part one, DD. I saw little clips of it, and it was pretty good. I saw a little bit before I came live. I watched like 5 minutes of part two, and it seemed good too. I do think that there are a lot of Black Americans that don't understand like just how much a lot of people, particularly white people, are like, we feel like we're getting a raw deal here. So, Elbows Down says he'd call in, but all of his dogs are there with shock collars. Yeah, I hear you. All right, Balefactor, you ready? We're going to bring you up first. Keep getting those super chats in. Links at the top if anyone wants to call in. So, Balefactor, how you doing today, man?
Doing all right, Rob. Yeah, it's I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, actually. It's just my day shifts, just can't find the time. But
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that respect, I wanted to just sort of offer for the specifically for JD Vance and Tom Homan a point of criticism and a massive point of praise.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, and like just before I say anything, I acknowledge that in the grand scheme of the political landscape right now, a $50,000 like soft bribe is nothing against the campaign against the militant campaign against ICE and the Democrats who are like tacitly supporting it. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So, I don't think either JD Vance. That said, I don't think that JD Vance or Tom Homan handled the situation particularly well. I think he was. I just kind of get the impression that he did take the 50K, and it just wasn't that. It's just my opinion is that it's not that big of a deal because he wasn't an elected official. But I don't think that for either Vance or Homan, talking to the media really did them any favors, especially in JD Vance's case. I usually think JD Vance is pretty on it. Here he was, he was saying he didn't know, he was, and I do think he's right in that it's, the media cares more about this than they do what I mentioned earlier about ICE and whatnot, Antifa, and so forth. But I don't think that his performance there was particularly strong. What do you think about that?
So a couple things. Homan's one thing. I don't know how well Homan does on these interviews. He's fine for me because he's saying what I want to hear. But is that sort of articulating it in a way that the people that you need to, that are on the fence? I don't know that Homan moves the needle on those people too much. In fact, he may move the needle the other way because he comes across as very brusque. Yeah. So the question is, should he be talking to the media anyways? We'll get to in a second what I mean by that. JD Vance is very good with the media, so presumably he's going to talk to the media. So the question becomes, anytime there's a scandal, JD Vance just shouldn't talk to the media because he'll be asked and he's going to say, yeah, I don't give a shit about this. So he should just not talk to, because my assumption is his interview with Stephanopoulos wasn't sold to him as, we'd like to bring you on to talk about Tom Homan. I'm guessing it was, we want to talk about immigration. And we want to talk about the policies of the Trump administration. Then he gets on, and Stephanopoulos, as Stephanopoulos is going to do if it's a Republican, scandal. And eventually JD Vance is going to say, look, I don't know, he's a private citizen. I didn't see the video. I don't know. Why are we talking about this as opposed to other shit? Actually, you're a liar. We're going to cut you off right there. Thank you, President Vance, Vice President Vance. How's he supposed to sound good? What could he have theoretically said? Yeah, it looks like Homan did something really bad there. He needs to fess up. What possibly could have JD Vance said that you would have been like was a good answer?
Well, like it's not so much that I guess it just kind of goes back to I'll admit like him how the interview was sold to him as an angle of this I didn't really consider, but even then I think it was he in that situation he came off as pretty unprepared.
I just don't know what he could have said. I literally don't know. Like, your options would be like, it's very serious. We're looking into it. Now you've just created a news cycle. Every news, even Vice President Vance says this. Homan needs to resign. Okay, so you can't say that. You can say, we don't give a shit about this. We like Homan. They don't care about corruption. The Trump, they don't care about corruption. He can say, I don't know. I don't know about the story. Trump's team's willfully ignorant. They're intentionally not looking at these things. There is no way to approach it. You could do actually, I'm here to talk about immigration. I don't know the scandal you talk about. All forms of that, you're going to come across like, I just picture. Imagine Kamala Harris is getting interviewed, right? And Bill Clinton does a fundraiser for her, and George Stephanopoulos just thinks, here's what Juanita Broderick says about Bill Clinton, that he assaulted her. Here's Paula Jones. What do you have to say to that? Right? And she's going to be like, it was a long time ago. It's not like Bill Clinton's running my campaign. He was a former president. He was fun. So you don't care. You'll associate with people that these claims are out there for. That's what you're saying? You're not very concerned about these sexual abuse stories? What could Kamala possibly say in that environment? Hey, I'm done with this interview. This wasn't what I was here to talk about. Oh, so you're running from this. Yeah, I take those accusations very seriously. Oh, so you're willfully associating with a person that have these accusations. It was a long time ago. Oh, so it's cool as long as people get away with it a long time ago that we know. You see what I mean? There are certain questions that the best thing you could do is just be like, listen, here's a brief answer. Now I want to talk about the important things. I don't think there's a possible answer that J.D. Vance could have given that you would be. So then the question becomes, there is a serious question. Should J.D. Vance be talking to George Stephanopoulos in the first place? Now, 99% of the time I say no. Republicans need to take people like that and say, go fuck yourself. You're bad faith. We don't talk to you anymore. You're scumbags. You're just Democratic operatives. Goodbye. Done. Right? But if you're going to have one person out there talking to the media, I'd put J.D. Vance at the top of the list. And the argument would be like, someone's got to reach the people on the other side. So like him, Ron DeSantis does a good job most of the time when he's not campaigning for president, talking to the press and doing a good job. So, I don't know. I have no problem if the suggestion is just like, then just don't talk to these people. No longer go and meet the press. Tell the entire administration, blackball ABC totally. Never a question. And Trump did that later. ABC asked him a question at the White House, and he was like, where are you from, ABC? No. After what Stephanopoulos did to the vice president, fuck you. We don't take questions from you anymore. That's the way they should have. I think they should have done that a long time ago. I would literally, if I was the Trump administration, be like, we are not taking any questions from the mainstream propagandists. Done. Don't give a shit. We'll talk to local newspapers and shit like that. We'll talk to people that are challenging of us. No problem. But we ain't talking to you people anymore. You're propagandists. You're not press. That's it. Yeah. What are they going to do? Shout, oh, this is against freedom of press. Well, you print whatever you want. We're just choosing not to talk to you. Go fuck yourself. Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, but they're not going to do that. And to the extent that it's like, well, then you limit the people that will go out there and talk to them. I would put Vance near the top of that list. And I don't know in this case what you say if you're Vance. Mamdani sounded pretty good the other day on Fox News. And all he kept saying was, they're like, do you think Hamas should lay down their arms? I want peace there. I want affordable housing for New Yorkers. But Hamas specifically, should they lay down their arms? I don't really care about that. I want affordable housing for New Yorkers. See how effective that is? That's basically what J.D. Vance did. But the problem is, you're looking at it through the perspective of how it's being spun by people in the mainstream. It's like, oh, so you're ignoring it. You could do the same thing with Mamdani. You could say, so you're ignoring Hamas. That's what you're really saying. Maybe. But the people that matter are going to be like, I don't know, sounds to me like he wants affordable housing. I also don't give a fuck about Hamas. So I just don't know. I don't know. Given the circumstances, once you take the interview, I don't know what you're supposed to do. What was the name of that woman in running for governor in California? I keep forgetting her name. Porter? Katie Porter, is that it?
Yeah, Katie Porter, yeah.
This interview's over. I suppose you could do that. You see how bad that looked? And if you don't do that, then you got to give some sort of answer. And I think Vance gave basically the best answer possible. I don't know. I didn't see any proof of actual corruption, and we're focused on other things. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and for my point of praise, I with the supposed racist text, I really did appreciate his JD Vance's response to that, especially and I can already hear the counter argument. Oh, those texts happened 2 years ago, but Democrats right now are sticking by him. And I forget his name, but there was literally a judge who was like caught using a racial slur, and he was well, he was forced to step down. And it's like, this is an obvious thing where for someone who has such a position of power, like we can't have obvious sort of obvious malice towards his political opponents.
I think it. So let me like the racial slur thing for a second. It's interesting you bring that up because it was something I forgot to talk about yesterday. Politico broke this story, and Politico got a story in like 2022 and refused to publish it, and it was text messages from Hunter Biden, and he's dropping the N-word, and they're like, "Nah, this is sort of private, right?" Now, obviously, there's a difference between running for attorney general and being the president's son. However, as we know with Hunter Biden, he was more intimately involved with governance than we would have been led to believe. But for me, I don't want someone in office that truly hates black people. I don't. I don't want someone who's using a racial slur with malice. I showed a video yesterday. You remember Virginia Governor Ralph Northam?
I don't.
Okay, I don't. I'll see if I can find it. I don't particularly like Ralph Northam, right? Ralph Northam, pretty staunchly pro-abortion guy. I'm not a fan, right? However, I'll show you this video real quick. We'll bring it up here if I can find it again. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever seen. Oh no, I spelled that wrong. That's why. Monwalk. What the heck's a Monwalk? So Ralph Northam, there was a big scandal some years ago where there were pictures from his yearbook where he allegedly was dressed up like a Klansman or in blackface, which is funny that he couldn't remember which one, which is bullshit. Yeah. But you'll see the picture here, and then it's just this quick video. I'll play it for you.
In San Antonio was a dance company.
Yes,
And it was that you danced the moonwalk.
that's right.
Are you still able to moonwalk?
Inappropriate circumstances.
My wife says inappropriate circumstances.
Now, if you missed it there, what just happened was he's fighting for his political career here because he's a Democrat that's being accused of being a racist. And they're like, you said that when you dressed up like that, you did the moonwalk. And he's like, yes. And they're like, can you still do the moonwalk? And he gets a big smile and he's about to do it. And his wife's like, no, man, don't do it. Now, here's what I'll say about this. Here's some background. And I say this as someone who didn't like Ralph Northam. He worked as, I believe, a pediatrician for years, and he specialized in working in inner cities. So disproportionate amount of the young children he would have worked with were people of color. Not one accusation ever of being a racist. None. There wasn't a story, and I'm sure that people were looking for it after these photos surfaced, of people trying to find him behaving in like belligerent or racist ways to people of color. Not one. So am I willing to say this guy's entire political career should be thrown away because he was in high school or college and he fucking, had a shitty joke? No, I don't think this guy's a racist. Similarly, if someone throws a racial slur in a private text message, but they're clearly not a racist, am I that upset about it? No. Now, if the private text message are, hey, we're attending the Klan meeting next week, right? Yeah, that's a different fucking ball game, right? Yeah, that's too much. So
the stakes change when it's something or someone specific.
Well, yes, that's true, but it's also that the context matters. And here's the problem. There's no perfect answer. All of us are biased. You probably, if you found out that I had a text message that was like, what's up, my N-words? You'd be like, I don't know, I've seen Rob. I don't think he's a fucking shitty guy. I don't think that's a bad deal. But you're biased. If you were watching me from the perspective of someone that was hate watching me, you'd say, aha, see, got that motherfucker. So our bias is going to influence what we think of the context of this. It's not an answer that anyone's happy with. Nonetheless, you have to admit that the context matters, right? For example, if you had no idea if Ralph Northam was white or black, and you just said, hey, this guy who's Virginia once dressed up as a Klansman, but then he took the hood off and he's a black guy, you'd probably be like, oh, it's sort of ironic, right? Like, that's okay, I get it. That, in other words, the context mattered. So everyone agrees with that to some extent. So when you look at, like, I don't know the situation you're talking about a judge or whatever that said the N-word and got fired. Maybe that's good, maybe not. Maybe it's just someone that's like, I'm not fucking racist. I just use that word and, okay. I don't, I would never use it in public because I understand the implications, but this is a long way of saying I don't fucking take the, like you said, offensive shit stuff. That don't mean anything to me. Wishing death upon people is different. That's a different ballgame. Right?
Yeah,
so the question I have about these young Republicans' text was, when they're calling for violence, does it appear that that is a serious call? And Jay Jones, the guy running for attorney general, does it appear when he's talking about violence that he's being serious?
Like he was literally asked and he doubled down in the text
That's
messages.
right. So the differences are twofold. One, from what I've read, and I haven't gone through the entire Politico article because I know what they're doing with it, but nonetheless, it seems as if the calls for violence are saying shit like this. Yeah, man, but Hitler was wrong to use gas chambers. They should have used something else. We'll fire up those chambers once we win, LOL. And it's like, no, I don't think these fucking frat boy type dudes joking around are serious. Like, no, serious, when we win, we're going to put people in gas chambers. I don't think that's what's going on, right? But because for two things. One, they're not really doubling down. It seems like they're in a joking, playful mood. It's still offensive. Don't get me wrong. If I was Jewish, I'd be like, what the fuck? Right? But it's also a friend group. And I know what it's like to message my friend group. Right? Now, I'm not saying shit like that, but there's a lot of shit that you'd be like, ooh, I'm just going to throw this out there. I would probably get accused of homophobia if you saw some of my text groups with my friend. And I'm not homophobic. I'm not. But there's maybe certain words that you're throwing around, in text messages with your friends, whatever. Now compare that to Jay Jones. Jay Jones isn't texting a friend. Jay Jones is texting a colleague across the aisle who texted them first and said something effective like, I'm sorry about this Democrat that passed away. And his response was basically, fuck you, I hope Republicans die. And I hope their children die. And when the person said, listen, you're kind of freaking me out here, like, are you serious? And he doubles down, like, several times. In fact, at the very end, the last thing he says was, are you asking me if I think these people are fascist and if they're raising evil children? Yes. Now, that's different, right? And the fact that this dude's literally running to be a prosecutor, right, for the state, the fact that he doubled down, the fact that he wasn't saying this in a friend group, that's not a joke. Like, there's no way to slice that as a joke. And the other thing I'll say is, and I mentioned this yesterday, listen, people could say, well, that's because you're biased. I defended Destiny when he made fun of that firefighter, Corey Compatore, that got shot. I said, I'm willing to write that off as a shitty joke. And I still am. The problem with Destiny is all of the other shit he says makes you think that it's not a joke. Like when he says, we want Republicans to fear for their lives to go in public. The worst thing that could have happened was that bullet not taking out Trump. Those are jokes, right? That's not, right? Trevor Noah the other day said, he's like, people say you can't joke about Charlie Kirk. But sure you can. Like, it's objectively funny. He was talking about not needing gun control as he got shot. Now, I don't think that's a particularly funny joke, but do I think that that's Trevor Noah saying, I'm glad Charlie Kirk got shot? No, I don't think that. Now, maybe Trevor Noah is glad Charlie Kirk, but I don't think that joke exemplifies it. I'm willing to say that's a joke, and jokes can be offensive, and I could not like them, but that doesn't mean that it's speaking to the person who told that joke is serious about it. In other words, context matters. So the fact that Jay Jones, the context of all of this shit he said in 2022, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's not his comments that are the worst thing. It's that they come out in this environment where we see Luigi Mangione being celebrated by so much of the Democrats, and Charlie Kirk's killer being celebrated by so much of the Democrats, and people that are attacking ICE agents being celebrated by so many of the Democrats, and not one Democrat called for this dude to step down, except maybe John Fetterman. That's the problem. That's the context of this that matters. And so what did they do instead? we'll turn to our allies in the media and we'll have them dig up a story about a bunch of 20-year-old Republican kids telling jokes about gas chambers. There we go. Now we can say, see, tomato. We're both sides do it. Both sides do it.
Just really quick. I don't mean to break your flow, but do you
That's
think
fine.
John Fetterman, since you've brought him up, do you think John Fetterman will become a Republican like in the near future? Because he's been pissing off the left a lot lately. His time in the media, I have to say.
Axios wrote a story today saying that Democrats are going to primary him, and it'll probably be Connor Lamb would be my guess. I don't think he'll become a Republican. At best, he would become independent. But I just don't think if he became a Republican, the problem is there's too many positions that Republicans wouldn't like of his, like sort of his, like healthcare things and sort of big government things that he would lose a primary. Now, if he would, let's say theoretically, I don't know when he's up for re-election. Let's see, 2028 would be my guess, because I think he won in 2022. So it's a 6-year term. So if 2028 he wins as a Democrat, hypothetically, right? And then this crazy shit continues or upticks, he might at that point say, I'm changing to independent, because he would still have 6 years. But at this point, it would sort of be a fool's errand to do it with only 2 years left, in my opinion, because especially Republican, he would never win a primary. I guess there's a path for claiming to be an independent and then trying to go it alone. And who knows? He might even win as an independent in Pennsylvania if you had a Republican and Democrat challenger. It might be that enough people say, you know what? We thought Fetterman did a decent enough job, but it'd be risky. So I don't see him changing party, but it's going to be crazy. I think he's representing, whether he wants to or not, this dude I talked to last night, his name was Box, and this dude's from what he's telling me, it's the first time I met him, that he's a Democrat, and he's sort of disgusted with the radical nature of many of the Democrats. There's people out there like that, and Fetterman's going to represent them. And these are people that are like, I don't like a lot of this stuff Donald Trump's doing, but I'm willing to say when he does something good. I think the Democrats are getting too extreme. We need to bring it back to sort of being the party of pro-union, being the party of like, look, we need more social programs, like more healthcare subsidies, more housing subsidies, etc., but not full-blown socialism. I think there's an appetite for that. There are a lot of people, I think, that are begrudging Republican or Trump supporters because they're like, my gosh, the left has just gone insane. And so now where are we going to go, right? And if there was a movement in the Democratic Party to bring those people back and say, look, we're not terminal TDS sufferers. We're done with the lawfare and shit. We think Trump's fucking up with X, Y, and Z, and we would like to go in a different direction. I think there's a strong appetite for that. And personally, I'd love to see that, because even though I would disagree with a lot of those Fetterman policies, I think weeding out corruption is number one, and stopping the insanity that we see, because the left at this point is a runaway train. It's self-perpetuating. The most extreme voices are getting the most oxygen, and the less extreme voices don't know how to deal with it. So they just like stay set. Like Chuck Schumer right now is petrified. He's absolutely petrified. I have no doubt that Chuck Schumer today would love to sign the CR and have the shutdown be done. Right? The problem is it'll be seen as caving in to the extreme progressives in his party. So he can't do it.
Yep.
He has to look like a fighter, right? And so their hands are tied. They're like, well, shit. And it's so I don't know. I don't for those reasons, I don't think Fetterman will switch parties. I think that he'll, but kudos to him. Like, look, I despised Fetterman when he ran in 2022. I still think that I don't want to say a wolf in sheep's clothing. I just think that he's not good on many policy issues. However, I will give him credit. Yeah, I will give him credit though, because I do think that he is taking a risk to within his own party to come out and be like, listen, this shit's wrong. Did you see what he said? Yeah, here, I'll show you. I'll see if I can find this real quick. What he said yesterday, it's incredible. The balls that he has to say this as a Democrat is unbelievable. Here, well, two things. If you don't mind, if you have to go, that's fine. I'll play.
No. I'm actually really glad that like being early usually gets you this much time, because I did have a few other things to. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
So here's one thing he said. This isn't what I was looking for, but you'll see the point.
I'm the only Democrat in my family. I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania. And I grew up, and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve. Give people the space. I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that passive assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, you know, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump was in my state, was shot in the head. And if that would have, could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down. And we can agree to disagree on these kinds of things. But right now, shutting down the government, I just can't take it that.
I mean, who do you hear that's a Democrat talking like that? And again, I know people are saying like, oh, you're buying this bullshit. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying look, either he's just shooting from the hip and saying what he wants to, or he's making a calculated maneuver that he's going to try to be one of the front runners of a more centrist messaging Democratic Party. Here's the other, I think this is the clip I was looking for, but this is about the shutdown.
That's why shutting the government is really what the Democratic Party wants to do. And I follow country, then party. And it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down. I absolutely would love to have... I would love to have a conversation about extending the tax credits for healthcare, absolutely. But I would remind everybody too, this was designed by the Democratic Party to expire at the end of the year. This is not something taken from by the Republicans. They were designed to expire.
I mean, there he is admitting it's the Democrats that are doing the shutdown, and they're wrong. It's no surprise that the day after he says this, Axios puts out a story, he's going to get primaried. And I know that's a signal to Fetterman. They're saying, like, shut your fucking mouth. Shut your mouth. You can't be honest about this. But he's right. He's objectively right with what he says there. It is the Democrats that are doing the shutdown. They deserve the blame. It's not that Republicans have put forth a funding bill that took shit away from Democrats. It's literally they gave them the same one that they signed 13 times. And they're just like, no. Or not this exact one, 13. But they've signed 13 continuing resolutions here recently. So, yeah, it's an interesting question about Fetterman because I think that my gut feeling, I agree with the person in the chat that said, I think he's being genuine. I agree. I think he is as well.
Yeah, I agree as well.
I just think that he's sort of still got some socialist leanings, right? So I wouldn't agree with him on policy, but you know, I respect that, and I could see myself voting for John Fetterman over a terrible Republican candidate. It would have to be someone terrible, but I could see that, and I respect what Fetterman's doing, even if I disagree with him on many issues, because I think that he probably, you know, I mean, look, here in Pennsylvania, it's fucking crazy when you think about it. Right? Butler, right by where I'm 40 minutes away from the Butler Fairgrounds where Trump got shot and he almost got assassinated. Josh Shapiro, the governor, had his house attempted to burn down by an arsonist who was a pro-Palestinian lefty. Now, Fetterman is a big Israel guy for the Democrats. He's like, yeah, like he's all in. He sounds like a Republican. He sounds like Ted Cruz on Israel. I'm not, your mileage may vary on whether or not you think that's a good thing. But from the perspective of Fetterman, you're like, just purely for self-preservation, you're like, okay, so Josh Shapiro, who's Jewish, gets his house burned down with his family in it. They tried to take him out, right? Pro-Palestinian people. Fetterman's even more pro-Israel than Shapiro. Then he watches Trump almost get his head blown off, like basically right outside where he grew up. And it's like, holy shit. Like, this is getting real bad. Like, it's getting real bad. And so I think that he's genuine, like, hey, what the fuck? And I also think that Fetterman's probably not lying about where he grew up, because he grew up, if I remember, he was near the Pittsburgh side of things. And there's a lot of Trump supporters there. There's a lot of Republicans in the area. And I think he's probably had a similar upbringing to me in this sense, that he knew a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. And so to hear them say, like, well, fuck these people, they're evil, they're fascists, they're Nazis, they're clinging to their guns and Bibles, they're deplorable. He's probably like, nah, I don't know about that. He probably even's like, yeah, I hate Trump. I think Trump's terrible, but these people are voting for Trump. They're good people. They're just misguided. They're wrong. That's probably his feelings. So when he sees this rhetoric, right, and then he sees like the Charlie Kirk shit after all of that, and all of a sudden you have all of these lefties that are like, yay, Charlie Kirk's dead. You know, and he sees the New York Times immediately go into, well, actually, Charlie Kirk was an anti-Semite. And Fetterman's probably sitting there like, what the fuck? Charlie Kirk was a huge Israel guy. What are you talking about? Now they're justifying his death in some ways. And then instantly they start calling him a fascist again, which was one of the things written on one of the bullets. Like, he's probably like genuinely like sort of freaked out. This is my party? This is what we're doing? Then he probably believed, now personally, I don't think a shutdown here and there is a bad thing, but he's probably of the camp, no. Like you've heard Democrats say for years, you can't do a shutdown. That's like the worst thing. You can't do it. He probably genuinely believes that. Now he sees the Democrats shutting down over what he sees as bullshit reasons. And I think he sees like, wow, the more extreme wing of the party is getting more and more power. And I don't like this. I don't like it at all. And I think that we need to step up and be like, listen, there's certainly serious disagreements we can have with the Republicans and with Trump, but my goodness, what are we becoming? And I think that that represents a lot of people. The question will be, can you win a primary with that message? I think that message is popular in a general, but there's going to be an awful lot of money that's put into that primary to take down John Fetterman from the Democratic establishment.
And to that point about elections, I also wanted to comment about this sort of redistricting fiasco going on. Now, you know, the argument, I'm actually somewhat sort of split on this when it comes to racial representation, because in theory, I'm not really I would be vehemently against any kind of race-based districting. But the Black population in the U.S. is like a unique case where basically like 90 to 75% of us vote Democrat.
Yeah.
And what I think is really, really amusing about the sort of representation argument is that it's only representation when it benefits the Democrats, right?
Correct.
Because, we all know that, almost all Black people vote Democrat, and obviously they deserve representation, but the smaller percentage, guys like me who are Black and don't vote Democrat, we don't deserve any representation.
Of course,
you see how there's literally no Black Republican I can think of who would get any kind of positive review from even a mainstream Democrat, honestly.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. They did remember when, I forget what magazine it was, did minority representation in courts, and it was the top 100, and Clarence Thomas wasn't put on the list. You're like, this has to be one of the most forget about the word Black, one of the most influential justices in the last 50 years in the court, and you're like, nope. We're not going to include him because he's conservative. So we won't, So yeah, that's sort of proving your point there.
Yeah, and I was going to make a point about the redistricting. And it's it doesn't really mean anything for me if foregoing the Voting Rights Act means that a lot of yeah, this is gonna sound harsh to say it, but because it's I don't really relate to the experience of being Black and voting Democrat. But I think you kind of know what I'm getting at. It's not. I'm not shedding any tears over this. Is basically
sure.
In that respect. But yeah, do you think there's any harm in the Voting Rights Act being revoked? I heard you talking earlier about this being you were talking specifically about black and white people in relation to voting and how
so
have something happen, you're getting a raw deal.
I personally am not a huge fan of the Voting Rights Act. However, I would have to read it thoroughly, because the problem is oftentimes what happens with these acts is we know like the high points, but there might be things in there elsewhere that it's like, oh, actually that is a good idea. So I hesitate to say that it should totally be revoked. However, if it is what we're looking at in the case in front of the court in Louisiana, which is sort of the idea of, can you have districts drawn up with race being the defining factor, I'm against that. And you heard the lawyer for the side that's defending that argue yesterday. They were asked specifically by Neil Gorsuch. In fact, I have this clip. I'm not going to play the clip, but asked specifically, I'll just read the quotes. I have it here. Gorsuch says, do states have breathing room to intentionally discriminate on the basis of race? And the attorney defending the act says they have breathing room to use race to remedy their own discrimination. In other words, what she's saying is, because of past discrimination, we could now draw districts based on race. And that's absurd. I don't think that should be allowed, right? Because at face value, what happens is you're now prioritizing people for immutable characteristics. It sort of is a very similar argument to reparations or affirmative action. I have no problem to people that were personally aggrieved or even their children being made whole by the federal government. However, at what point are we going to say, like, if we do this, think of what this happens. So then 50 years from now, will white people be able to say, you know what, we got screwed over in Louisiana because of an official government action, because they drew these districts based on race. So now we're aggrieved. So now we want districts drawn just to benefit white people. And, you know, the attorney for the opposite side nailed it and was like, what you've done is you've created an extra district for black people, which is nonsensical. If this was a white district, you would never do it. So it's not merely that you're just creating a district based on race. It's that you're creating an extra Democratic district. Then, of course, there's like people that were like, I don't know if it's true, but I saw people saying this. Look, if they did the same thing in Texas with Hispanics, Republicans would stand to gain like 2 seats. So they'd never do it. They wouldn't create just these Hispanic districts because, those Hispanic districts would probably vote red at this point. So fuck that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you know, so they're like, we don't care. But the point is this, right? Like, this is hard to say. And like, from the perspective of being a minority, it might be shitty to think about this. Let's take black out of it for a second and take Jewish. What percent of the country is Jewish? 1%? 2%? Right? Imagine that they were like, you know what? We don't have enough Jewish representation, which would be kind of funny. But let's say that's the argument, right? So we want a Jewish-only district. Would anyone accept that? Would you be like, okay? Now, if a bunch of Jewish people happen to live in a location and there's a district surrounding that location and now they become the majority in that district, I have no problem with that. But to say, well, we're going to redraw the district, especially so these Jewish people can have at least one representation, that's absurd. Where do we stop it then? So then are we going to try to draw districts all around the country so that each minority has their own special district so that they have representation? You can see how this quickly gets out of hand. The truth is, if you're 10% of the population, 13% of the population, and hypothetically you were evenly spread out, like in each district, you know, you're 13% of the population in each district, and everyone would tend to vote based on racial lines, that would mean you'd probably get 0 representation as far as people that look like you. And I'm sorry, that's the way our system has to work. We can't be like, well, we need to draw, and everybody that bitches about gerrymandering, there's a lot of problems with gerrymandering. I absolutely agree. But this is the issue. You don't get to say, maybe Republicans are 40% of a district or a state and Democrats are 60%. That doesn't mean that Republicans are entitled to 40% of the seats. It doesn't. It may be that they get 0 because the maps are just drawn legitimately like rectangles. And it's like in each district, it's 60% Democrat, 40% Republican. I'm sorry, them's the breaks. We don't redraw because we're like, if you're going to have this form of like representative, direct republic representative democracy where people are, we each get a vote to vote for a representative, then you can't do it that way. That's not what it is. Now, you could say, fuck that whole system. That's fine. There's a conversation to be had. that maybe the founding fathers didn't intend for everyone to vote, which is true. Okay, we can have that discussion, but no, I'm not a fan of this. I think that, and I also think that it's ironic if you listen. And I'll play a clip. You might get a kick out of this one. Who's to blame here? Why do they need this? 1 second.
That's right. And in the state of Louisiana, that analysis was conducted in the Nairn case. And it was clear that regardless of party, white Democrats were not voting for black candidates, whether they were Democrats or not.
I had an additional
and we
point to
know
make
that.
about this.
Yeah. I mean, so
it's so funny because it's like one of the metrics by which people on the left use to determine how racist something is if there aren't enough, whatever that means, enough like racial minorities and whatever, and then you see how Democrats vote, and then even in their own party they're not, they can't be bothered to make sure that their own representatives are represent the population. So it's just a crock of shit.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other questions. It's like, for me, skin color is largely superficial, right? In other words, what you want is, if I'm a black man, here's what I want. I want someone who represents me. Now, part of that might be issues surrounding black people. I'm a white man. Do I want a representative that'll stick up for white people? Of course. But what's my big issue? I talk about this all the time. It's not racial. It's sort of lifestyle. It's culture. Rural America. I want someone that represents rural America. I don't give a shit if that's a black man or a black woman. I don't care at all. If there was in fact, I forget the lady's name. My goodness, this is terrible. She came on my show and got interviewed. Absolutely fantastic. Was running for Senate. Or no, she was running for governor. A black lady. Knocked it out of the park. I had her on the show. Loved it. Was like, absolutely, I'd vote for you. Now, unfortunately, she dropped out before the primary came about. But I was a big fan. I don't give a shit because my issue, but I understand, like, I wouldn't vote for her if I thought she'd be like, and screw white people. I wouldn't vote for her, right? But the problem is, like, we're led to believe, like, well, if you're black, it has to be someone who's black that would represent you. Well,
yeah, like
maybe.
Brian Donalds.
Right. So it's like, it's not necessarily the case. In fact, you can have a black person that screws over the black community. Barack Obama. Nonetheless, it's so weird. It's so weird to talk about, right? But the part that I find uniquely hilarious is this isn't saying Republicans are racist. It's not saying people like robnoerr, white guy in rural Pennsylvania, he's racist. No, this is saying the same people that virtue signal us about how, silence is violence and you have to be anti-racist. These white liberals, when it comes time to put their money where their mouth is, they ain't voting for black people.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? And I mean, there's weird shit like this, man. And this is the problem when you're so heavily focused on identity politics. Like, why did Kamala Harris say she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg? Because he's gay. And black people don't like that. But wait a minute. Right? These are uncomfortable truths. Like, yeah, it might be that a white liberal might praise, but I have my feelings on what's going on with the white liberals. I talked about this with a caller yesterday, a black woman, and I was like, I think that one of the things that happened was there was a fear of these like white liberals back at the time of the Civil Rights Act, like with LBJ, etc. I think they were still the party of the racist, shitty KKK that didn't like black people, and they thought, well, you know what? If these black people have like Christian values and strong family values, they may start building up their own work ethic companies, etc., and then they'll be our competition. And we don't want that. So how do you avoid them from being competition? Well, one way is to violence, like enslavement, incarceration. But the other way is you make them your pet. We'll take care of you. You're a victim. Don't worry. We'll send you free government money. We'll send you free government subsidies. The world owes you something. And what happens if you do that generation after generation? I'll tell you right now, I don't give a fuck. People want to be like, well, you should have the gumption. A lot of black people do have the gumption to say, no, fuck all that. I'm going to achieve on my own. But I'll tell you right now, if they did that in my community that I grew up in, that's white, I see it right now. You know how many people I see that are like, I'm just going to take government benefits. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work. What happens if you do that generationally? And then on top of that, you have basically every cultural institution saying, oh, you got fucked over. The world owes you something. You were discriminated against. It's not your fault that you're not achieving. It's everyone else's fault. Yeah. You're right. So I'm not going to work hard. I'm not going to get trained in a skill where I can have a nice career. Yeah. Fuck all that. Not to mention, at the same time, we've wiped out the manufacturing sector, which is where a lot of people that didn't have generational wealth had access to becoming middle class, right? You didn't need to have a rich family to become a badass welder, and all of a sudden that's paying great money, right? Or to work at a steel mill where all of a sudden it's paying great money. But that's gone. Much of that's gone. So for me, it's like, I always find it amusing when you hear these lecturings, from these, ivory tower white liberals. And I saw this shit a lot in the debate community. I saw it a lot, man. It was all the time. Like, you'd be debating two white people that'd be screaming at you about race. It's like, all right, man, then why don't you forfeit when you're debating black people? Right? You have a chance to do it, man. You have a chance to propel these people to victory. So do it. But they ain't going to do that. Well, no, this is just sort of performative. I actually don't give a shit, So it's interesting. She did bring up another thing about the American with Disability Act, Ketanji Brown Jackson did, which is laughable. She said that blacks need their own district, just like handicapped people need wheelchair ramps. I mean,
yeah, because obviously there's something inherent to being black that means you need a district. It's so ridiculous.
I know it's crazy. And again, like you hit the nail on the head. Like, no one would give a shit. The Democrats wouldn't give a shit if that district, like, let's say for whatever reason, like in Louisiana, like a bunch of folks like you that are black people are like, you know what? Let's fucking buy fucking, every business in a 10 city block radius, right? And we're just gonna create a strong black Christian conservative community, right? With black owned businesses and we're all conservative. You think for a second they'd be clamoring give those people their own district? Of course not. They'd be like, ugh, the hell with these people. They're gonna vote against us. All of a sudden the argument would be flipped on its head. These people don't need their own district. Gerrymander them into a bunch of white.
Authentically black, yeah.
I mean, that's just, good luck to you. Like, some of the shit in the black community you hear, my goodness.
Believe me, don't even get me started. And for my final thing, and I like being able to chat here for a while, but I don't want to hold up the line too long. So for my last word, you brought up cultural institutions. Is it okay if I bring awareness to a crowdfunding campaign, or is that bad form to do?
I don't mind if you do, but I would just say that I can't verify the cause or anything like that. So don't take this as me endorsing it. I don't endorse anything like that because unless I know all of the, if it was my friend that was in a wreck, that's different. I know the facts. So, but you could bring it up. I don't mind. I'll just say I don't know anything about this, nor am I endorsing it. But.
And I'll keep it brief. So do you know who? I'm sure you know who Seamus Coughlin is. Freedom Tunes.
Yes.
And I don't think that you or this particular audience, it's really going to hit home because I don't really get the sense that a lot of us watch cartoons or whatnot. But a large part of cultural institutions are people in the media. And I think that one way we can sort of change the tide is by supporting Seamus Coughlin. He's working on a cartoon, by the way, and I donated. You can find the link if you go to his channel, and I think it is especially if you're someone that has kids who watches cartoons, maybe and I know you have a son, Rob, but
yes,
just in general, I think it's important. I think we talk a lot about how ridiculous these people are, and in children's entertainment, the animation industry especially, it's out of control. I mean, I think there's been a lot of documentation about sort of how they sort of spread their politics in cartoons. So I'm not going to get into that here. But I do think it's a good cause. And if you're someone who, I actually think that people like Seamus who sort of tap into art and less about proselytizing and spreading policy. Like, do more to move the needle than a lot of the best debaters do. Because I mean, a lot of people aren't convinced by evidence. Like that really is true.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Well,
But
no,
yeah,
I
Rob,
think I think you're directionally correct that we talked about this a lot last night too. People ask me all the time, how do I get involved in politics? And here's the truth. People don't want to hear this, but most of you are never going to be governor. I ain't going to be governor. I ain't going to be a congressman. I ain't going to be a senator. Now, I'm somewhat of an influencer in the most tangential way, I guess, okay? But most of you aren't going to be that, right? But that doesn't matter, right? There's things more important than politics, one. But even to the extent that you want to be involved in politics, the best advice I have for people is actions are always better than words. If you live your life as a conservative, as a Christian, etc., and you put those values into your work, I don't care what it is, that makes a difference. You could be a carpenter, right? A roofer. And if you put those values out there for people to see, that creates a cultural movement. And that's certainly true in the art world. We are bereft of people that come from a conservative background that are involved in art and entertainment, right? And it's frustrating. And it's something I talk about, quite a lot with my family, where it's like, look, I'm not some fuddy dud that never wants to enjoy anything in life. I love the movies. I love it. I love going to the movies, especially with my son. But the last two movies we saw were a re-release of Toy Story, a re-release of the Casper the Ghost movie, both movies from 30 years ago, right? Like, where are my options now for my son? Anything I go see is going to be inundated with left-wing people that despise my way of life. So when you get a chance to support people that are making quality stuff, quality entertainment options that come from more of a cultural perspective that you do, you should support them. So it's something that I totally agree with. So I enjoyed the call very much, Balefactor. I really do. To everyone else, if you call in first, you get to go longer. So go ahead.
One last thing, because I've been able to speak for such a long time. I sent a super chat where you were talking, and I'm going to send another one with a small gift attached. But don't get too excited though. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, Balefactor, thank you so much, and I'm going to read the super chats right now. But always a pleasure, man. You take it easy. Have a good one. All right. Great call. Yeah. And if you call in first, then you get to talk longer. But it was very enjoyable. Balefactor, there it is. $5 says, hello, world. Really appreciated it, man. Cody Folsom, $5 says, hope all is well, Rob. Steelers are second in the AFC, taking a victory lap after I mogged you in that debate around Tomlin. Oh, don't celebrate too fast, my friend. When we go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak and end up 9-8 and losing in the first round of the playoffs. And the division sucks ass this year thanks to some key injuries like to Joe Burrows. We'll see, though. Big game tonight, that I'm going to miss because allegedly I'm doing a debate. Adam Ant, $5 says, it's a trap. He's the test dummy to figure out what they have to say to get moderates. Wait for the polls. Oh. You saw the Akbar, right? Appealing to me with some Admiral Akbar quotes behind. All right, Gigi, you're going to be next. I'm going to go to the restroom real quick. Chair, take over. Get him, chair. How's your dog? Tori? How's Dorothy? Did she take her meds? Nice. Hopefully it salts her out. Well, here's the deal. She's normally like a 14-hour-a-day sleeper. So, I mean, it was nice to see her close her eyes for a minute, but... All right. Here we go. Now listen, here's the thing. I know this is going to piss everyone off, but I have to tell you, we got to shorten up the times on the calls now because I do have a hard out at 2:30. That still gives us an hour and 15 minutes. Don't get me wrong. You all could still send in super chats. That'd be great. We have 4 callers on the line right now. An hour and 15 minutes. That's what? A million minutes per caller. So that should be fine. But just to give you an idea, and it's always the case that we'll have a couple of people that'll jump on near the end. Kokomo, $10 says, hell yeah, chair. But I always appreciate talking to Balefactor. I don't know what it is about him. It always, and we're talking about things that maybe I didn't plan on talking about, so I like that. All right, Gigi, you ready? What's up, my friend? How you doing this fine day?
Good, Rob. It's a good PTO week for me. I've been trying to relax. Like I'm trying to change my life around since Charlie died. Like I was like way too hard in the career, so I was like, I need to level this out. I need to get out more and get back. I need
to start reading the Bible more. That's something, and so I'm currently looking. I happen to have some connections. I have a Serbian friend who's one of the most knowledgeable people about the Bible I know, and he has generously offered to help me with some lessons. So that's something I'm going to be working on myself, in addition to trying to get more physically fit. And so yeah, and I'm going to be working on the channel more. So I think it's working on ourselves. I remember talking to you. If you ever heard Casimir, he's our ANCAP friend that calls in.
Yeah.
He has a shitty mic. I don't know what the hell the guy's doing. You would think for a man that's like super capitalist, the guy could buy a fucking mic that we could understand. Nonetheless, he put me onto this guy who was sort of, I don't know if he's ANCAP or not, but he talks about the decline in culture, and his solution to this is basically what he calls like radical self-improvement, right? It's like, if society is going to get shittier and shittier, what can you as an individual do? Constantly work on improving yourself in serious ways. And I think it's great advice. And there's one of the things I think people fall into is they think that means, hitting the gym. Well, yeah, I think that's part of it. Physical fitness is part of it. But I think there's other things. Like for me, radical improvement means being a better father, being a better husband, being a better Christian, being a better neighbor. So there's a lot of things that we could all improve upon ourselves. It's why I hesitate to give life advice, because it's like, who the hell am I? Yeah. I got so much to work on myself. I'm sitting here telling other people, hey, Spiro, here's what you should do. And he's like, right, dude, have another bag of chips, Yeah,
I've been like, say, 95% career, like 5% elsewise. And pretty much the 5% is just working out, because I've always been active. I was like, okay, I got to get out more. So I joined like tennis leagues. I haven't picked up a racket in like 15 years. So I went, and everybody else was like 15 years older than me, and I just smoked them. And so I was like, all right, I need to find a better tennis league.
Nice. Dude, that's my goal is, so once you guys donate, like, I think I need $5 million. So the day I get, we're far away. But when I get the day I get the donation that's $5 million, I'm going to be like, drop the mic, be like, fuck you guys, I'm out. And I'm going to move to Bradenton, Florida, where the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league team is. And it's basically like an old folks community. And I'm going to join a shuffleboard league against a bunch of 70-year-olds and fucking dominate. And I'm going to have the greatest life that's ever been lived. I'm just going to crush all these fucking elderly people leagues and just be like, yeah, how you like that? Except golf. Like old people, the two things I found that old people crush you at is golf, if they're, if they've played. And around here, it's horseshoes. Like when you turn 50 around here, I think you get kidnapped like in the movie Old School, and they take you to some camp where they just force you to get really good at the game of horseshoes. Because every old dude I've ever seen play horseshoes is an absolute beast. I'm just like, how the fuck do you guys do this? And so, but other than that, I'll dominate, Yeah,
you'd be closer to me in Bradenton, so hit me up if you make it down that way.
Excellent. Oh shit! I just saw what Balefactor donated. Here, you might get a kick out of this. Balefactor, $10. Says, attach to the super chats your honorary N-word pass. Use it well. Thanks again for having me on for a minute. I really enjoy speaking with you. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. I'm gonna save that for Hassan if I ever
Rumble
debate Hassan. Yeah, throw it right out there. Be like, listen. I had the pass. True story, Balefactor, and everyone else that's listening. These events occurred nearly 10 years apart. I went to a Pittsburgh Penguins game. I walk out of the game with my friends, and there's this black guy who's like homeless, and he's singing what I would call hilariously racist Christmas jingles. So he's just taking Christmas songs and throwing the N-word in here and there. And people are like awkwardly walking by. I had 1 or 2 beers. I sat there for like 15 minutes like cheering and shit. And I ended up giving the guy $20. And he's like, listen here, man. He's like, all these black people walking by. No one gave me $1. You're my black brother. You could use the N-word anytime you want. And I was like, thanks.
Now you got
Like,
two
and I
peppers.
a chip on my shoulder. So that's 10 years. And that was like, my wife wasn't there, but I told her, I'm like, I swear this happened. We took my son to the same arena, right, where the Penguins play, except it was monster trucks. So this was last year. And we're walking out, and there he is again. There's that same black homeless guy. And he's like singing songs and like, hey, and everyone's walking by. And I walk up and I give him another $20. He don't remember me, obviously, but he gives me the same spiel. He's like, yeah, you got the N-word pass. So I'm like, this is money well spent. My goodness. Like,
Limited
and
passes.
now I think the rule is once you get the pass from two separate black people, now you're good to go. It's unassailable at this point. They can't say that both had bad judgment. So I'm in it, baby. Woo! I'll only use it once, though. I'll save it for, a very important moment in my life. Maybe I'll run for Senate or something, and I'll be doing a debate on CNN, and I'll break it out. And I'll be like, no, it's cool. Call my friend Balefactor. He said it's totally cool. We're good to go,
So I wanted to talk to you about the that FHA graph that you brought up.
Yes,
earlier.
yes.
I was just looking around for it because I pay attention decently in the market because I unfortunately was trying to buy right whenever COVID started. And so everybody ran me out, especially in Florida. Like all the nor'easters came down and just blew me out of the water with money. The numbers I was getting at, I was trying to get of how much that is in raw numbers.
Mhm.
And kind of the numbers that I was pulling out, just doing some cloud searching, was around, that would be around 30 to 50,000 loans, FHA loans, whenever it's at the 4% range per
Okay.
year, that would be given out in FHAs. That would be H-1Bs or non-permanent, whatever the hell they're doing.
Sure, sure.
And also on top of that, like, I don't think a lot of people realize the National Association of Realtors is the biggest lobby in the country. They give the most amount of money. So that's
Really?
why there's like so much emphasis on, homeowners getting breaks, and as compiled year over year into like the new home buyers, getting screwed because they're the biggest lobby. They just keep pushing like tax break or like, all these kind of breaks for homeowners. And so the new ones, you get shafted. So I assume that always plays into this of like all these, schemes of down payment assistance and, that subsidies and FHA now. And I don't know the downstream effects of all of this of,
Now, are you interested? Are you just interested in this, or did you somehow work in the industry?
no, I've just been interested in since like 2020 because I had just got in, I was looking for my first home. I was like, I don't know, Jack. And apparently the first move was the first house I saw I should have bought because that's when the prices started skyrocketing. And so I felt like I needed to know way more going in because I was just reliant on the realtor because realtors, all they tell you is, oh, the best time to buy was yesterday. The best time is today.
My brother's going through a purchasing home right now, and it's like, thank goodness. My wife worked at a bank. She was not in the housing industry or anything, but she knows a little more about loans and stuff like that. Plus, like, again, I can't stress this. I have a very specialized intelligence. Like, to anyone that thinks I'm smart, I am a total fucking idiot on everything related to life other than what you hear me talk about. So for me, when we're buying a home, I'm just like, yeah, wife, you come with me and deal with this. I don't know what they're talking about. And my brother's going through the same thing right now. So he's calling my wife like, does this look good? Like, what am I supposed to do here? My wife's just rolling my eyes like, what is up with you NOR guys? You guys are a bunch of morons. But yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. I was going to ask you if you were involved in this. I know we had someone in the chat earlier said that they were involved in mortgages.
Yeah.
One of the things I always thought about was if you go back to the 2008 financial crisis. Now, I'm going to butcher this, but basically my understanding is what happened was you had these organizations that were tasked with basically putting letter grades on
That's part of it. Yeah.
how much the likelihood of a mortgage being paid back, right? And you had these mortgage companies that were intentionally giving out mortgages to people that they knew had basically zero chance of ever paying it back, but then grading them as A+, then packaging them together and then selling them to firms that maybe me and you, we're just working a 9 to 5, not paying attention. We're putting 5% into our 401k and some company handles it. That company buys these sort of, packaged loans thinking, oh, these are good investments, they'll pay out. And then they default.
Yep.
And then once they default, who's left holding the bag? Well, you, Joe Schmo, that put money into a 401k that purchased this. And now you're out of luck. Of course, then the banks were like, well, we need a bailout. When they were gambling on this shit, they're making money hand over fist. But when they lost, they wanted a government bailout. The question I have, though, is this. I always wondered, and it was something I didn't hear people talk about, is there an incentive, like a long-term incentive for these banks to intentionally give mortgages out to people that they know they'll default on because then they'll become the property owner?
So in '08, that's what they kind of a lot of banks learned the lesson in '08 that they don't want to hold it because that's just liability. Like they don't want to be holding the bag on the way down. They want to pass it off to someone else. So that's why this time there's been a lot of extend and pretend of I forgot to bring this up on the FHA thing is it might tie into this other graph that you showed is people will say like, oh, I'm in financial stress. I can't make my payment on my FHA. And so what they do is like, oh, we'll extend your loan to 40 years now. We'll tack on 10 extra years and we'll just add that payment that you owe onto the back end and it'll accumulate taxes. And a lot of people, I don't know, it's not sizable, but it's enough where people figured out you could just keep doing this forever and never pay your shit. And Trump just finally stopped that part of like, now you can only do it once. I think it's like in a 5-year window or something like that. I got to get the details, but there's a decent amount of people that just never pay their mortgage. They just infinite free rent. And so I don't know how many of these numbers are related to that. So, you know, all this stuff is getting cut off and the 40,000 number that I quoted before, I think there's like 4 million sales last year, which is very low for America. That's basically just death, divorces and moving. That's basically the only people moving around, which is 1%. These FH loans apparently were about 1%. And everyone's like, oh, who gives a shit about 1%? Well, there's a lot of fucking things in the housing market that is like 1% big problem, 1% big problem, 1% big problem. And then if, you know, the active sellers and buyers determine the market. So if you start whacking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% off of, you know, these people who become very motivated sellers, this thing's going to tank. Like it's bad.
It's so crazy. And like, you know, I mean, I think, correct me from, again, I'm very much a novice in like even looking into this stuff, but you know, you see a lot of these memes of like the boomers and like the younger generation just furious, like, dude, you fucked our country over, especially in Canada, right? I see a lot of people saying like these old people in Canada, they're like, fuck it, let's import a bunch of people, you know, that aren't even part of the culture. It'll drive our home values up. We're going to retire with 5 pensions. Fuck you, youngster. Who cares? Your country's going to be shit. We don't care. We're living high in the hog right now. It's also true in the United States where we see this, where, you know, there's a feeling of the younger generation's like, dude, these boomers are screwing us, right? Like the greatest generation basically took the money and ran. And so like their home values, instead of like, they want to do everything to drive housing costs up because that's where so much of their assets is going to be in the property they own. So it's like up and up and up and up and up. And hey, let's buy more property and up and up and up and up and up. And now you got these young people like, I would like to buy a starter home. And it's like, good luck. Yep. Good luck finding one, right? It's just, you know, it's on very crazy. Budget. Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. So like on a budget. And it's like, even my house, like just in the past couple of years. So my house is, I bought this house 6-7 years ago. And like, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. My wife's probably gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing? I think we paid $85,000 for the house I'm in now. It's now worth like $140,000. And we didn't do shit. Yep. Like we're living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, we did a couple things, but nothing like it's like, oh, did you build an attachment? No, nothing like that. Yeah. And it's like, well, what happened? And of course, our property tax went way up and, you know, all this shit as well. But it's like, oh, well, that's good for us, right? Well, not really. What am I going to do with that? Exactly. Sell my home and then buy another one? Yeah, all those prices went up 40% too. So it doesn't matter. It's not like, oh, I spent $85,000 and now I have $140,000 if I sell. And so now I'll buy a house that's $140,000. Right. It's going to be my house. That's $140,000. So it's like, so yeah, if you own a bunch of properties or stuff, that's good. I guess you could borrow against that or whatever. But what do you do if you're the person? Have your wages gone up 40% if you're a young person? Of course not. And, you know, I saw a chart yesterday that was talking about the average months you need to work to afford like a down payment for a home from like 1970 till now. And it's insane. It used to be something like 8 months and now it's something like 40 months. Or something like that. And it's just, it's not tenable. And there's not enough houses to go around. There's a litany of problems. Giving it loans to H-1Bs and people that are non-permanent residents is a problem. Allowing these investment firms to buy up so many houses, that's a problem. You know, so it's, you know.
I think there's enough supply to go around because we have more supply than pre-pandemic, I believe now. And so that's why I'm kind of scared about whenever Trump did was talking about the housing emergency, because usually when government starts getting involved in housing, it just fucks it all up even more. So it almost feels like we're slowly grinding down, and you're like, all right, just let this ride out.
Yeah.
And then if you politically, that's the move of like, keep pointing out these crazy things, like these FHA loans, like that was like infinite forbearance, basically the giving away the H-1Bs, like keep pointing these things out, because those are political winners of like, look, all the people before us that, whether they be Republican or Democrat, let this crazy train go off the rails. Like, we're just going to put a stop to all these things and let them come down and let the market, ride its course. Like you're talking about how you haven't done anything to your house. That's what I see whenever I'm looking for houses is we're renting a house right now. If I wanted to pay about the same amount of rent that I would do in a monthly payment, I would have to put down like $130,000.
Correct.
On like a house. Which is wild. No one has that money in cash.
It's absolutely insane. Then you can see how like sort of the rich get richer, because who does have that money? Like, if you want it, theoretically, if you were a billionaire, you could be like, I'm going to buy up all the properties around Dallas. Yeah. And now what? Well, I'll double the price. Someone's going to need a home. There you go. I'm the only game in town. Now, it's not going to be one person, but it might be, 20 people, 20 firms that do that.
I think Atlanta was like, during the peak, whenever everything was blown up, it was like 40% of their homes that got sold went to investors. It was insane numbers. And then in my area, it was like 25 or 30%. And obviously all of the homes that they're buying are the lower end homes because they want to rent them. So that's all the people, the first time home buyers, you were competing against investors. So people were like, oh, they were barely buying anything. Yeah, but they're buying all the ones that you want to buy. That's the problem.
Well, and then listen, I sympathize with everyone involved in this to an extent, right? So how about the people that are they're not investor firms, they're an individual that had disposable income, and they're like, we're going to buy a bunch of houses for Airbnbs, right? Like, I understand it. It's like, yeah, what's the problem with that, man? You're trying to make a buck, no problem, right? But you also can't help be like, when that market starts to crash, people are going to be left holding the bag. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, I thought this was a no-lose investment. I buy this property values are always going to go up. People are always going to want Airbnbs, win-win, right? Well, it's like, well, now you're seeing the Airbnb market, at least I was reading this last year, there are a lot of people mightily struggling. That all of a sudden it's, we don't want to, why go to an Airbnb when I could get a hotel and, I don't have to pay the ridiculous cleaning fee and I don't have to worry about someone barging in and blah, 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 blah. And so now the Airbnbs are down. And if that, if the housing prices fall, there's going to be an awful lot of people that are sort of over leveraged in that are going to be like, holy shit, I just lost my ass. So, I don't know. On one hand, it's like you obviously see the danger of housing prices collapsing and what that could do to people. But at the same time, it's like, well, if housing prices don't fall, how are young people ever going to be able to afford starter homes? There's other things they're suggesting. You remember when Trump was like, we're gonna basically go to federal land and just build new cities. You remember when he said that? It was just like, it was an interesting thought. It's like, fuck it. And for me personally, on a personal note, it'd probably be an incredible boon to my family because I have so many people around here, probably other than the university that's in my little town. The biggest job market is probably people that work on modular homes. And it's like, well, you have this world of tiny houses now, and you have this world of starter homes. Hey, man, if you have entire cities that it's just going to be like, we need 50,000 homes, stat. Okay, right? That's a big market for little places, little towns like this that build those homes. But I don't think that that's going to come to fruition. But it was an interesting thought. And you always hear even Kamala, wasn't that part of her plan? We're going to build all these houses. That was part of her plan.
No, she just, I don't think she talked about building much, or maybe she did, but her big thing was, I'm going to give 25,000 to every first time home buyer or whatever, criteria she would have put off. So everybody was just going to crank their houses 25,000 right off the rip. You're like, genius.
None of this shit. It's so dumb. It's like, and in fact, here's another thing that was funny. I should save this shit. I'm always constantly this I saw at Urgent Care when I'm there with my son with the apple seed in his ear. I saw this chart where it was some law school, and it was Trump capped the amount of federal loan subsidy you could get for certain schools to like 50,000 or whatever. And what you know, at this school whose tuition was like 78,000 last year dropped to 50,000 this year. I wonder why. It's like, yeah, I mean, once the government starts guaranteeing this shit and it's like, we'll give you more and more and more, you'd be an idiot if you're the school to be like, we're going to just charge more then? Like, what the fuck? This is guaranteed free money for us. Sure, man. You know, and as a young person, you're not thinking about it. I know I didn't.
I need to find you the graph. There's a graph where it has like a bunch of industries over some time frame, and the price over time, like so the inflation, and it color codes it of like government and non-government related industries, and like all the government ones like
shoot through the roof.
Yeah. I gotta find that graph.
Tuition's one of the worst. Yeah. And then the funny part, it's sort of like we were talking about, I think yesterday, with like insurance and hospitals. Like, at the end of the day, you could be like, well, there's always winners and losers, right? And let's say, hypothetically, you're like, doctor, noble profession. Why don't they deserve to get rich? But that's not really what's happening. The hospitals are getting rich, and so do the firms. But the Joe Schmo doctor and nurse, they're not really keeping up with the increased cost of healthcare. You'd be like, well, if in a 10-year period, the cost of healthcare, went up 80%. That means doctors and nurses are making 80% more. No, that's not what that means. It's like that in academia. Right? You're like, oh, well, if tuition charges have skyrocketed, at least we're getting more quality professors and they're getting paid more. No, we're getting administrators. That's what we're getting. People that ain't doing shit. Now, all of a sudden, your increased tuition is going to pay for your, minority counselor. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And there was one at the university I went to. Nice dude. I met him. Very nice dude. But I could not tell you what this dude's job was. Right? Like, he was there for like his job title was something about like minority representation. And it's just like the guy that had the job before this guy, I remember I had this class. It was a geology class. And I've talked about this class before. This professor, huge communist. And like, I pegged this guy day one for what he was. And all I did was wait until like the third class. And we were talking about renewable energy. And the first person's like, oh, we need wind power. No. We need tidal power. No, what about geothermal? And I came up with this. I was like, the problem is you all have a consumption mindset, right? Mother Earth's given us enough. Now it's time for us to give back. A+, baby. I was in the rest of the, I took that guy for like 3 classes. Every time I had this dude, though, this guy who was some administrator, very thick African accent that came from Africa, he would come and he would give this presentation. The same fucking presentation, all 3 classes I took. And what it was he at one point was like basically an intern at a zoo in like fucking Somalia. So he would show you pictures of the zoo and talk about the animals. And that dude's making $120,000 a year. I couldn't fucking tell you you are the zoo guy? You talk about zoos? Well, no. See, he's representing diverse cultures and on campus. And he's like the diversity ambassador or some shit. So what's he do? Well, he gives this presentation about the zoo he used to work at. Okay. And what else? He's there if you need to talk about diversity. And you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? But that's the sort of shit that happens once the government gets involved and starts throwing money. You got to spend it somewhere, right? Might as well hire this guy to talk about a fucking zoo. It's surreal. And for anyone that questions this shit, like, I don't know, Gigi, if you ever had this issue. When I was growing up, my parents would be fucking livid if I would open like a can of soda and only drink half and then like set it on the counter. They'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? I'd be like, I wasn't thirsty anymore. And they'd be like, that's wasteful. And it never hit me as a kid till I moved out of the house and bought my first case of soda and was like, what the fuck? Drink the whole can, God damn it. Like, what are you doing wasting that? That's 60 cents per soda, you motherfucker. What are you wait? Like, once it's your money, you understand. You're like, oh, like this sucks, right? But when you're spending someone else's money, fuck it. $120,000 on zoo guy, sounds good. My university, I remember, this is sort of scandalous. They built a new science building, and it has this piece of copper just going through the outside of it, like in the center of the building. Kind of looks neat, but why did they do it? Well, I happen to know someone that was involved in the administration level, and he said, want to know why they did that? Because they needed to spend an extra $800,000.
Yep.
and budgets were coming up. And if they didn't, you would think, well, that's a good thing. They would go to the because it's a state university. They'd go to the state and say, look at that, we came in under budget. No, that's a bad thing. Because if you come in under budget, then the state's going to say, sweet, then we're going to cut your budget by $800,000. Clearly, you can make it go without it. So you're mad scramble to spend all the money you can. In fact, you want to spend money you don't even have. That way you can go to them and say, look, we need more. That's government spending, baby. That's the way it is.
Yeah, that's what happens in the sciences too. Like their grants, like they have to spend, they get a certain amount per time frame, and once that time frame comes up, you need to spend everything you got. And so everyone's like, "Dude, we got to spend like $20,000 in like this week," and everyone just scrambles. They're like, "Just start buying everything, load up on reagents,
Isn't it
load up on
crazy?
anything."
Yeah, yeah. So, well, all right, Gigi.
Yeah, let's
thank
go.
you so much for the call. I really appreciate it. I
All
got
right, yeah, appreciate it. Just make sure whenever Mamdani, like you said, you gave him a compliment on focusing on housing prices. All this stuff like the FHA, like you have to focus on that whenever they come back at us. They're like, what are you going to do about housing prices? No, we can't pump the market. We have to cut down all this scam and the NAR. Like everybody needs to think about
Their
that.
solution's always going to be more government programs,
Yep,
which lead to more scamming. That's what it's going to be. So
All right, appreciate it, Rob.
thanks, Gigi. All right. Remember, keep getting those super chats in. You don't want day shift to lose out to night shift. You don't want that. Adam Ant, $2 says Fetterman is a trap. Yeah, you're right. Probably. But he's still better than the rest. I don't think that he's like shrewdly pretending to be something he's not. But he still has a bunch of shit policies. Cody Folsom, $5 says down 75 pounds this year. Need to track calories every day. Gets pretty easy once you're in the habit. That's amazing, man. Good for you. I think I'm down probably about 30 to 35 pounds in the past year and a half. But I definitely have more to go. Max Reddick, $5 says, would you mind reading X message I sent you in your live stream? It's nothing inappropriate for streaming. It won't violate TOS. Sure. Let me try that. The DM you sent me? All right. Feeling particularly black-pilled today, how do we contend with the fact that if we don't lawfully lock up the left for their blatant crimes and political prosecutions, we'll likely lose the midterms and the Democrats will eventually take positions of power? They will seek retribution tenfold, and I truly believe that they will seek to lock up political commentators, more conservative politicians associated with Trump in any capacity, delete more conservatives like they did Charlie Kirk, etc. What can we do? It seems Trump isn't going to go far enough with prosecuting the left-wing politicians who tried to jail him for the BS felony charges. Trump doesn't seem to be doing enough. There are no signs of de-escalation. In fact, it's getting worse. If Trump doesn't use power he has under his authority, I believe we're thoroughly cooked. What's the answer, Rob? Yeah, you're right. Largely, Trump is not doing enough. He's absolutely not. It's a fucking joke. Trump still doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. I don't know that him doing more will affect the midterms. I think the midterms are lost at this point. I think it's too late. Now, I only have 20% confidence in saying that because anything could happen. I mean, we could literally end up in a war with China, and that would change the calculus and everything. We could have a horrible natural disaster. We could have an economic boon. Like, anything's possible. But if the midterms were tomorrow, just a month ago, I said after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, if we had the midterms then, I would estimate that the Republicans would have won pretty significantly. I feel if the midterms were today, Republicans would narrowly lose. That lets you know how poor they've been on sort of pushing back against the left post the death of Charlie Kirk. Institutionally, they've been absolute dog shit. Sam Hyde nailed this. Trump had basically 2 weeks. He did basically nothing, right? Instead, they've allowed the left to control the narrative, which they're very effective at doing. Even with the waning influence of the legacy media, when it comes to people paying attention, the legacy media's influence is absolutely enormous in setting the tone for what other people involved in new media talk about. What did we talk about today? The first caller, we talked about these messages from Politico of young Republicans. That's what we talked about. Meanwhile, I could show you story after story after story after story after story of left-wingers attacking ICE agents. What we talk about? Politico story. It's the way it is. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I really am. What am I really doing? I put up the fucking Charlie Kirk thing at the end of each show. Great. That's not much. Better than what the Trump team's doing, but nonetheless. So what do we do? That's the question. What can you do? Balkanize, culturally come together, try to show people the absurdities and the irrationality of the left, capitalize on the mistakes they make when they eventually get power again, which they will. Now, this doesn't mean that they'll win the 2028 election, but I think that they'll probably, if I had to bet, If I was forced to bet all my money on who wins the midterms, I would say Democrats. I've been wrong before, but I'm just throwing that out there. So, you know, I don't think you as an individual probably will be locked up. I doubt that I will be. I could be, I guess, for being a commentator. I guess. What am I going to do? Live my life in fear? So I continue to trudge forward, push the message of how radical the left is, how disgusting they are. But I mean, it's a conversation I could do a whole show on. So, but I appreciate the dono. And lower class, $10 says for the grift. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Remember, get those super chats in. Next up, we got Miggy. What's happening today, Miggy?
Not much. I've just been, for a couple of days working like crazy. But overall, adding to what you were saying about the whole political story and about like how, the ineffectiveness of the Trump administration, just Republicans in general, is because we're oftentimes at each other's throats for the dumbest things. This is one, in fact, we've seen the Reagan caucus was completely bashing on Matt Walsh and anybody who's defending the political text or whatever, that political trying to smear those people from all those fucking jokes and so. And the thing is, the Reagan caucus did got ratioed the hell out because they got called out for being weak and ineffective. The problem is that I think Trump has too many people in his ear that are weak and ineffective who are looking to backstab him, who are looking to destroy the MAGA movement and keep the same status quo in power. And I've been saying this since November, since after he got elected, he started to nominate his cabinets. The biggest roadblock to Trump is not going to be the Democrats. It's going to be members of his own party who's looking to knife him in the back at the moment they get a chance to do so. And once the tides turn, they basically will destroy the MAGA movement entirely and go with the same thing, the same status quo as they was doing before.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's absolutely true. Look, I don't know what to say. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, I guess. It's easy for me from the outside perspective that's not getting all the information that someone like Trump is to be like, here's my criticism, here's my criticism. I stand by my criticisms. I don't think he's doing enough. I've talked about this. I think it's appalling how little has been done post-assassination of Charlie Kirk, and how the left has been allowed to become more and more radical. And it's not even just policy. It's the fact that they're losing control of the narrative. How is it that, like, I could come up with such an easy plan? Every speech that Trump does should just be, before he says a word, 20 minutes of left-wing violence. 20 minutes. 20 minutes of the post of them celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. 20 minutes of Democrats being asked, asking for Jay Jones to step down? Nope. While they flash the images of what he said. 20 minutes of them celebrating Luigi Mangione murdering the United Healthcare CEO. Every single speech I'd do it every day. They're not doing it. They're losing control of the public narrative. Now you talk to average people.
Sorry.
They're like, what ICE is doing is pretty crazy. That's it. That's how bad they're losing the narrative. A month after the assassination attempt. By the way, this is nothing new. 2 assassination attempts on Trump out of the news cycle within a month. We sat here, all of us sat here, never forget. This has changed everything, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Month later, where we at? Yeah, maybe us here would say, we now realize we have clarity. We're going to church. We're doing these things that are better. But is that enough to change the national conversation? I don't know. Even people like Joe Rogan, that supposedly, like, really, they're really up on this. What's he doing? I think the fact that we're handcuffing ladies on the street and the ICE, we can't kick out the person that was here for 20 years. Great work, Joe Rogan. Yeah, these Republican text messages, blah, blah, blah. There you go. So, sorry, I'll let you go.
But yeah, here's the thing, like, I know, like, with my pet peeves with Andrew Wilson, at times, I think he still don't understand either. Like, the country is still mostly in the middle, sometimes center left, and they oftentimes are easy to manipulate by the legacy media in terms of weaponized empathy. We have shallow empathy, like someone like Joe Rogan, who don't understand the full context of what's going on and just have shallow empathy. It's easy to manipulate. It's easy to basically turn people away and end up voting for the things that should destroy like what Joe Rogan's done. He's voted for the same things that destroy California. I think they've done the same thing to Ronald Reagan. They weaponized his empathy to destroy the state of California, and you see what's happening right now. And this is one of the problems that Republicans are losing on, is the fact that we don't use the same playbook as the left. We don't have to go violent. That's one thing we don't need to do. We just use some of the tactics that the left has done, like mobilizing every way we can use the government as leverage, utilize power, utilize empathy. Like one of the things that it was effective on during the campaign was weaponized empathy when it came to like the Lake and Riley thing. We should keep doing that when it comes to Charlie Kirk, but we just completely dropped that whole thing. And like it's basically like he just died in vain for no fucking reason at this point. And it kind of pisses me off, like, because we have too many people within the Republican Party, within the right, who are just weak and spineless. This one, that's one of the pet peeves I even have with libertarians, because they live in delusion. Like the super hardcore libertarians live in delusions. Then like the libertarian tendencies or so, but there's reality. I live in reality. We all live in we both, you and I both live in reality. And the problem is that a lot of people just don't live in reality, or they just live in such a delusional environment that they think that it's not going to happen to them, or they think that it's going to be this way, or it's always going to be this way. That doesn't work that way. Reality doesn't work that way. Even though the left lives in delusion, you can argue that they do. I mean, it's pretty much clear. But the thing is, they know how to use power. They know how to use. They weaponize everything to their advantage for their delusions, and we don't do that at all. We don't. We play by principles and we lose. And the thing is,
I agree.
Don't matter.
So I got to cut you off, man. I'm so sorry. I do have other callers to get. If you call in first, you get usually more time. But I do have now. We have 6 more callers on the line and only about 40 minutes. But yeah, I don't disagree. I think the Republicans are weak. I think you see it largely from the Trump administration. Although I wouldn't put the majority of the blame on them, I think they have to pick up the slack because the Republicans in Congress are absolute dog shit. The Republican apparatus is weak. They allow this shit to go. They never utilize power in the same way that the Democrats do. And this is what you see. If the Democrats were in charge right now of all 3 branches, the bill that they put forth, the funding bill, would have included so much Democrat pork it would be insane. And Republicans would be fighting tooth and nail just to claw back some of that, right? Instead, Republicans put forth the very bill that Democrats wanted when they had power, and Democrats will win the PR battle that, no, you have to give us more or else the shutdown's your fault. That says all you need to say. Miggy, thank you so much, man. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, same to you. My last thing I want to say, don't give in to these dumb Republicans or the dumb centrists. Ratio the hell out of them. Call them out for their stupidity. Stand strong. Stand your ground. Don't be weak. Stand up. Stay strong.
All right, man. I agree.
You have a good day.
Take it easy. As always, Miggy, if he only had a headset, would be so much easier to talk to. I tell him every time, Miggy, you get a headset at Dollar General, $5, man. It glitches so bad because you're listening through the speakers, which are then going into your microphone. And I'm no tech expert, but Devil's Radberry, $2 says, why a meteorologist when forecasts are always wrong? I don't know that they're always wrong. Robert Whaley, $10. Thank you. Says Cody Balmer, the governor's mansion fire starter, got 25 years in prison. Yes, he did. He attacked a lefty. If he would have attacked a Republican governor, they'd have probably gave him a lollipop and sent him back out in the street. All right. Next up, speaking of tech experts, our friend Spiro, who knows some tech experts, but wouldn't know much about it himself. How you doing today, man?
Well, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, Rob, so I probably sound far more masculine than I normally do.
Nice.
So there's that.
Avarice would say EOD needs a cold.
Yeah. EOD needs a cold. Absolutely. Yeah. Overall, I mean, it's a little bit stressful career wise because I'm a kind of a pariah in tech. So I've been having to make some hard decisions the last 2 weeks. I haven't been streaming or anything. So you're kind of getting in some exclusive information here, Rob. I'll get right into
Real
it.
quick, you're not by heart. You're like not eating people or something, right? Because I actually had to take out my neighbors and use them as a source of food. It's been
No. It would be my kid first. She's got
There
a
you
lot
go,
of meat
right.
on her. So
Right.
yeah.
There you go. So. All right, I'm sorry to joke around. What's up?
No. So I haven't really had a chance to obviously get on stream and talk about this, but I've been watching it and getting into it. There's an extremely difficult situation that I think we're about to head into financially. And this kind of goes into kind of the government shutdowns, the way Trump has been operating with tariffs, etc. Although those are a bit outside my scope. But in terms of AI, right now with the S&P 500, NVIDIA, who makes the hardware for AI, like to run AI on, they hold about 8% of that weight. The Magnificent Seven, which is NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Meta, etc., they're about 30 plus some odd percent. Now, these AI companies have been shuffling money around. And if you follow the money, if you literally just follow the money that they've been investing with each other based on their public statements, you can see that they are massively overvaluing themselves. And they're somehow gathering money from Lord knows where and just shipping it off to each other. So here's an example. NVIDIA basically gave the blessing, like they made OpenAI like their chosen child, the firstborn child. And OpenAI is getting a big deal with NVIDIA. Now, here's the thing. What does OpenAI need to run their AI systems? NVIDIA hardware. So NVIDIA right now is sitting on top of this mountain of gold, and they're just feeding money out to these companies to sustain the AI system alive and then feeding it back to themselves. And in the last week, all of the financial online digital platforms that you can find, Financial Times, Economic Times, I believe New York Times did a piece on this, said that by 2030, we're going to need to have approximately $3 trillion in revenue in order to sustain the current pace of AI. And that's if AI stalls right now, makes zero progress. And we're going to need to use up approximately 8 to 12% of current US energy power usage by 2030 to keep going. This isn't sustainable. Current revenue is in the hundreds of millions. It's nowhere close to even $1 billion. That's based on publicly available data. So I'm sorry to bring this bad news up, but it means that I think that there's another crash coming. Apparently, it's 17 times bigger than the dot-com bubble and considerably bigger than the housing crisis, which you talked about before. So you're getting a first exclusive thing.
That's crazy. Like, I don't understand, like, how people... What is the convenience that people think they're getting that's, like, remotely worth all of this? Like...
There isn't one. See, this is the problem, is that people think that they're actually participating in this. They're not actually participating in this, not in the way you think they are. What these companies are doing is they're using your information and then selling it behind your back.
Mantid wanted to talk about the same topic,
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead,
Welcome
Mantid.
in,
You said
man.
you have some other stats to mute.
Oh, you're muted, Mantid.
Hey.
Every time I'm trying to be respectful to make sure that
Boomers!
if you bring me up, I'm not bleeding through and shit. So I
It's AI tech.
apologize.
It's funny,
Yeah,
like, I don't know how old you two are, but it's funny, like, we're talking about, like, tech issues and stuff. We can't figure out our microphones and shit, like a bunch of old grumpy men here, like,
Yeah.
it's fucking tech.
Well, that's the thing is I'm the guy at work who's always like, hey, fix your fucking shit, blah blah blah. Because I'm 39. I got no problem saying anything like that. But yeah, no. Spiro, I'm glad you got up. I love listening to you talk. I watch a bunch of your stuff. You and I've had some conversations. You stole my fucking topic.
I'm sorry. I will shut up. I will walk away right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's a good thing that somebody else is paying attention. And I figured you were. I almost actually DM'd you before the show, and then I was like, I've been calling into Rob's show the last couple of days. I'll just talk about it there, and he'll yell about it, and people will laugh. But then people will
I want to hear Rob yell. Yeah,
I will. I can do it.
So to tag up on what Spiro's talking about, so when the housing bubble, or excuse me, when the dot-com bubble happened, it was putting in like 1.2% into the national GDP. And that was over like 12 years that they did 1.2%. AI and tech investments is already at 0.5% in 3 years. It is absolutely fucking bonkers. 95% of every AI tech startup, whether internal at a current company or a new one, fails miserably. So people go in, get a job, they think they're going to be set for 10, 15 years. They're there for 10 months, and then they're back on the street. It happens.
Mantid, directly to that, just to add clarification to that,
Yeah.
95% of projects don't even go out the door. The 5% that do have a huge failure rate, just to add nuance to that. Keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. CapEx, if you guys pay attention to like investment stuff at all, CapEx has already pledged $350 billion for the rest of this year for AI startups, which is essentially just going to be, well, we need to pay NVIDIA to keep them afloat so that OpenAI can stay afloat so that everything else works, because OpenAI is purging cash. They've lost dang near like, what, $120 billion of their own funds since the middle of last year. So like it is the dot-com bubble all over again. It's the housing bubble like you were talking about before all over again. It's a bunch of fake like red flags that are a bunch of fake flags of victory that are all over the place that are just painted red on the back. The moment the wind changes, everybody's going to freak out. I mean, the 350 billion is 60% CapEx surge. The last time we saw that was essentially the Great Depression, when everybody surged and then everything fell apart. That was a 64% surge in the equivalent markets, by the way. We're 4% off in one sector for what happened in the Great Depression. The fact that people aren't literally like out in the streets pissing themselves that have investments in AI, and I'm one of them, you can see the fear on my face, and you can hear it in Spiro's voice. The fact that it's not 20 million people that are like screaming at the top of their lungs with investment bankers and venture capital groups and all this kind of stuff, stop giving these idiots money, is beyond me.
Yeah.
So someone asked, Naughty Charm asked, is this why Bitcoin and Ethereum dipped so bad the other day? That's totally unrelated, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
That my understanding, there's other shit going on. Like there was a lot of market panic as well about this sort of China shit that was coming up, but I don't think that's connected to anything that's being discussed here.
Yeah.
What could, other than people like making better choices, like these investment firms where they're sending their money and shit, like is there anything that you guys think that like government could do to step in to try to soften the blow, or is it already too late?
I think we're past the point of no return, and you can see that in venture capitalist reports. One came out at the end of last year. It was 300 some odd venture capitalists. They put a report together, and it was literally an oncoming train because they knew that they were going to get hit. In the tech industry, I think I've talked about this before with you, Rob, 90% of all venture capitalist investments in tech is AI, a vast majority in OpenAI. So you have to think about it this way. They've invested so much, it's way too late to stop the train. The amount of weight that NVIDIA alone, if NVIDIA collapsed, for example, it would wipe out 401ks overnight. That's just 8% of the S&P 500. We're not talking about the totality of all stock markets. So you can't pull that out. You're not going to be able to pull that out.
Right.
And venture capitalists know this too. They know that it's too late. They've sunk all of their money into AI, and that's it. From the customer perspective, you have to essentially play the safe game, which is, what if they're wrong and I'm right? Mantid and I are right. What are you going to do, right? You have to try and take care of yourself first. You have to vote with your dollar, and then you have to play out the long game, which is what happens when this thing inevitably collapses. From their perspective, you work backwards. From their perspective, put on the hat of somebody who loves AI. Put on the hat of someone like Sam Altman, who thinks AI is going to do everything that is promised for it to do. Well, the ends justify the means. There is no amount of money that will be bad money spent, because if you can get to the end game of AI, guess what? AI will solve all of our financial problems. AI will solve all of societal problems. That's why everyone's racing to it on a dream and a hope that AI will do what it thinks it will do. And then all of these problems that they've caused along the way, all go away. So there's a huge fundamental mind gap on how people are viewing AI at the top, and then us as regular people.
Yeah, that gap, by the way, let me put that gap in perspective really quick, Rob, and then I do want to hear what you said. So, beginning of the year, you remember when everybody, all the news stations were showing the big red boxes from the stock market when we had the NASDAQ bloodbath? Do you remember what that number was that the market lost in that like 3-day period?
Would we lose? Like, was it 20-something%? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was like $4.7 trillion that disappeared from the market. Yeah. Do you know what the bloodbath would be if this bubble burst tomorrow? $40 trillion.
Yep.
And I'm not exaggerating. By the way, you can look those numbers up. That's from Forbes. That's from every major investment banker and the CEPR models that they're running and stuff like that. Yep. $40 trillion disappears from the market overnight. If NVIDIA falls apart, if OpenAI falls apart, if the Gemini program, if any of these like fucking Jenga blocks falls to pieces, $40 trillion disappears from the NASDAQ overnight. If it was a bloodbath at the beginning of the year, this is a financial genocide.
It's the U.S. national debt.
Yeah.
So then what should we as individuals that are looking out for ourselves, where would you put your money if you're not already overexposed? Like gold, silver? I saw silver has been jumping
weapons up. If I'm going to be the darkest I can be, weapons. Yeah. No, and that's this isn't even laughing, right? Like, so yeah, there's two like very positive avenues for weapons investment. One, everybody's breathing down our neck. China, Russia, we're looking at Venezuela. We've got issues with a bunch of minor countries as well. China's looking at Taiwan. Russia's still dealing with Ukraine. Everybody's sending weapons everywhere, and we make them all. So, Raytheon, Boeing, all of that kind of stuff. That would be a decent place. It's a decent place to put money for that. Also, if we purge $40 trillion in AI tech money, everybody's coming for us. So weapons manufacturing is also significantly powerful at that point. It's all very expensive to get into, and I'm not an advisor for investments. I don't want you to dump your life savings to get 1.5 shares of, Raytheon or something like that. But if you had a bunch of money and you asked me where to point it, if I'm betting against AI, I'm betting for weapons at that point.
Yep. Yeah, I did see, and it's weird how all this stuff's connected. I hadn't heard any of this. Now, I could have guessed, just from conversations I've had with Spiro and shit that I've read without delving too deep in this, that it's clear that people are putting way too much hope and money into AI. And it does, I was young during the .com bubble, but it is reminiscent to that. Where, like, if you weren't around for that, it was just like, like you didn't even have to think about it. Like getting one of these startups, getting a .com, that's smart money. Smart money, that's where you put your money. Everybody knew it, right? And like if you took a step back and you're like, wait a minute, like, but it was like this new hip thing. Oh man, everybody, like everybody's gonna have to have like a website, and everybody's gonna need like, oh, this is the cutting edge. And then all of a sudden it turned out like, I don't know what the numbers were there. You're saying it wasn't even as bad as what we're seeing now, but it was like so many of these places were going out of business within like 6 months, 12 months. And like the writing was on the wall. If you go back and you look at it from a historical perspective, you're like, holy shit, how did these people keep pumping money in this? They couldn't see. Anyone with half a brain could see, yep, there's only one way out of this. And that's what it sounds like now. And so I could have guessed that AI has that feeling, even without delving into it, that it's just like everything. Like, fuck, if you go on X, there's not a day goes by that you won't see Elon Musk putting a post up like, Grok AI, wave of the future. It's gonna change the game for everything. And it's like, it seems like in the past 6 months, the amount of just LLMs that I could use, like Claude and Grok and, ChatGPT and all of these places, they just are springing up. And it's like, well, it's a fancy search engine. That's it. Like, it's a fancy, but this is going to change the world, man. Everybody fucking throw billions of dollars for this fancy search engine. And then the first time I ever heard anyone talk about like the amount of energy that it takes to run this shit was Spiro. And I'm like, I still remember the first time you heard that. I was like, wait, what? Yep. Really? And I was like, I'm going to look up. And sure enough, yeah, they're talking about building fucking nuclear power plants just to run certain LLMs. And for what? You're looking at it, you're like, what is the idea here? Like, I don't even understand what the, like, I get what Altman's trying to say, but how can anyone with half a brain thinks that there's anywhere fucking close to the utopia that he's talking about that we're willing to put, you know, what, fucking $40 trillion worth of our capital into?
Yeah.
It's surreal. And I mean, I guess I'll say this from my selfish perspective. When the 2008 crisis happened, there was a lot of talk about, like, sort of going back to the Great Depression. And it's fucked up to say this, and I don't mean any ill to anyone, but I looked into the history of where I lived during the Great Depression. It wasn't that bad. Because you know what happened? People just started to, like, move into houses together. Communities sort of took care of each other. It's the fucking cities, man. It's the people that don't have those connections to people. When shit hits the fan, that's what you need more than anything. A group of people that's going to look out for you. And my goodness, if you factor this on top of, like, just other things, like you were saying, Mantid, like China and the shit that's going on with them and them becoming a rising power, and then you see, like, internal division in the United States. Look how bad things is now in a time of abundance. What do you think fucking happens if all of a sudden we experience the next Great Depression? It's going to get ugly. Like, not just from a perspective of investing in weapons. I would recommend training yourself in the use defensively of weapons, because especially in cities, it'll get fucking ugly if we have another Great Depression type event. I can't even imagine. It'll make the, like, crime wave of the 70s pale in comparison. Yeah. So it's dark shit, man. It's dark. But
it is. But like you said, there's silver linings, right? Like, look, worst case scenario, this does happen. We purge $40 trillion from the market and from the value in the country, and, you know, everything's abysmal on the surface and stuff. But yeah, communities end up coming closer together, and, you know, like the American spirit is tested and all that kind of stuff. So, like, there's silver linings to it. I'd rather not get there. So.
How about this? I just read my private message here. Here's our friend Gio. I think he's going to push back on you guys. So let's see what Gio says.
Awesome.
What's up, Gio? How you doing, man?
Huh. Blessed beyond measure. How are you, Rob?
Great. So you were going to talk about this topic as well?
Yes, and if I can kind of funnel into the AI context, there are many videos that talk mostly about the parameters that you can use or elicit to make the AI chatbots in most platforms create a argument that would fit that parameter, right? I would argue that AI is going to hit that burst where people realize that it's truly not as objective as a resource as we think it is. If you're selling it, then sure, make them think this, but those that know the parameter bug that it does have, we're not really concerned about it. I mean, is it going to replace people in McDonald's? Probably. Burger King? Probably. Fast food employee decline? Sure. But most people don't want these jobs anyway. So I guess my question is, go ahead, sir.
Even if that's true, the collapse would still happen if all of this capital is already put into it, and all of a sudden everybody wakes up and says, well, you know what, there's going to be a wall. It'll be able to do some things to slightly improve, but there's a quickly approaching a wall. That would still trigger this collapse, right?
I was going to say that helps the argument of there's a problem. If everybody tomorrow figured out the same thing, and I agree with you, by the way, I don't even call it AI because AI is not like a real thing in my book. Like, I think Spiro and I talked about this in the Foundry. I try and say LLM, LAM way more than I say AI because I don't like people giving it credit that it doesn't have. So I agree with you there. When 51% of the population realize that same thing, what happens to the investments? What happens when the venture capitalists and these, like, huge guys go, wait a second, AGI is not possible. AI is certainly not possible. This thing is a little bit smarter search engine that predicts what I'm going to say, and that's it. And I can trick it to make it do whatever I want. Do I really want to dump another $350 billion into this? Nah, I don't think so. I think I'll put it in housing instead.
Yeah.
That everything comes crumbling down at that point as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it just fancy propaganda, fool? Because I mean, if you look at it, being sold a narrative, a dream, status quo has been the testament of our country. Now, I'd argue for net positives to propaganda and also net negatives. But where I think we can all, at least us three, can remain neutral in is that those that understand that it's a program and not some sentient separate life form that can be your girlfriend and text you at night, if that mental health aspect is intact, we should be okay where it should benefit us because if you look at colleges, they're using AI tools to supersede exams, testing, studying. So it could have implementations that would affect more of the shareholders and the owners of these AIs versus me or Rob, for instance, because we're using it, but I'm not an investor. Rob, I don't know if he is or not, but
I disagree.
Who would the crash affect?
I disagree. So you're talking about two different things. You're talking about who the crash affects and what AI affects. AI affects people already right now. South Korea just removed AI out of their university programs after a 4-month trial because they saw a huge significant drop in the quality of output in students. Students become heavily dependent on AI usage. And like you said, they do use it to answer tests and whatnot, but they use it in such a way that they don't actually learn and or retain any of the information. When you use AI, for example, to write essays in university contexts, these students don't understand or don't recall anything that has been produced because they never wrote it in the first place, which means then that these people get to pass an exam, but then they end up in fields like medical and other things where you would probably not want these people taking care of your health. So these things do have implications. And what's more, McDonald's did try AI replacement. And you know what they did? They went back on it because people were ordering 2,000 chicken nuggets. You know what Starbucks did? AI replacement. And they went back on it because people like the human element when they talk to a barista. These companies do have AI regret. So you're pointing to two things and kind of bringing them together, but I would argue that they are two separate things. There's an impact to you and I as individuals right now today. These AI systems are crappy. We should remove them. We have better alternatives in tech that can do a better job and give you the same utility. And then there's also the financial crash, which is like, well, we're all screwed that way. There's nothing we can do.
And I'll also say to the example, because it seems like part of what you're saying is, well, the crash won't be that bad because there's still going to be a lot of utility and use for AI. But I don't think the amount of money, if Mantid and Spiro are correct, being put into it justify that limited use, right? They're buying the Altman promise. Everything will be AI. It will literally do everything. That's why it makes sense to put 40 trillion. If it's, well, college students will use this to help write papers, and maybe McDonald's will have a better interface, that ain't $40 trillion, right? And once sort of the market realizes like, oh, we've been oversold, right? It'd be the equivalent of this. Like, I remember going through a phase with alternative energies. It was a debate topic one year. And I knew all these people that were putting money into like crazy shit like switchgrass, like companies that were like, oh, we're going to make these biofuels out of switchgrass or out of this, that, and the other. Now, to some extent, some of that shit yielded some results of utility, but nowhere near the amount that justified the investment that people were putting into it. The same would be true here. Like, even if you could say, look, AI still has a way to go for the utility, I would agree with that. I think that we have not reached the peak. I think that we're already seeing very bad ways, as Spiro was saying, that people are utilizing. But I agree with you. People are going to continue to utilize, and more people will. But I don't think that it'll reach the peaks that someone like Altman's suggesting. And if it doesn't, then the people that are gambling, they're smarter than, I don't know if smart is the right word, but they're doing some sort of calculation, like a mathematical calculation. Here's the amount of money it makes sense us to invest based on what we think the utility will be. And if the equation includes, we think the utility will be, everyone will use AI basically for everything in their life, holy shit, then that calculation's all in, baby, all in, throw all the money in. If that calculation is, look, we think the AI is going to eventually plateau. It'll be a little higher than it is right now. There will be some things for utility. Then you ain't going all in. You might put 10% of what you elsewise would have put in. So that's still going to mean a crash once people realize, like, well, shit, this isn't going to be our future wives. It's not going to be money-making machines that literally we just, like WALL-E, we all just sit on our fat asses. Well, AI does every job in the world. I will give everyone a last word. I do have 2 more callers. I would love to have you guys all back on to talk about it, but I got to get to Ulix and Evan.
Here, I'll go first, and then these guys can have the last word. I'm just going to say, just try and do what Rob is suggesting here. Focus on the human element and the people around you. That's something I've been saying a lot as well.
Zach wants to know all of your opinions too. Thanks so much, $20. Would you buy put options on NVIDIA? And what would be the time frame we're looking at? I don't think any of us are trying to give investment advice to start with, but right. I'll leave you guys to answer.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say we're less than a year away from seeing a crash. That's what I would guess. We might even be 6 months. I made a prediction at the beginning, late last year. No, yeah, at the beginning of this year, around March, there would be a year away, and we're almost to March, so it could be in a few months. But I would say you probably should have to, if you're going to do something. My money would be on a dip, on a crash, and play that. That's what I would do based on what I understand. So anyways, back to the final message. Focus on the human element, friends, family, the stuff around you that you can actually have control over. Retain cognitive sovereignty over yourself, okay? And vote with your dollar. The tech industry can do way better than the crap that they've been shoveling down your throats for the last 20 years, okay? That's all. So that's it for me. I'm out of here. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Spiro.
Mantid.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Gio. Appreciate it.
Gio, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and hit mine. Yeah, we can do it in order of join. That works. I'll back just to answer because Zach dumped $20. I'll back what Spiro said. If I was a betting man, I would tell you to go and talk to your investment advisor on Monday or Saturday if they're open or whatever, and plan for some kind of hit to happen probably in the next 6 months. I think he's right on point there. Maybe there's buffers in place that we don't know about, so you don't have to worry about everything tanking completely. We're being a little extreme probably for the show, but at the same time, like the potentiality for something huge is still definitely real. As for last words, we'll echo Rob's and we'll put a little humor into it. You can't go wrong learning learning firearms and learning some tactical stuff for two reasons. If AI does blow up and it is super awesome, we're going to have to fight Terminators. So you need to have buddies that you can fight with. And if everything falls apart, you're going to have to fight the guys from the next town over to keep your resources and your water safe. So you can't go wrong learning a little bit of urban and suburban tactics. So just educate yourself just in general. Learn about how AI works. Learn about weapons, whatever you want to learn about. Everybody pick something and just learn something. That's the best thing I can say, because you really can't go wrong if you know a little bit more than you did yesterday.
Thank you, Mantid. We'll talk soon, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Gio, go ahead. Give you last word. I wasn't muting you to be a dick. There was just some wind or something. That was all.
Yeah, so I'm living the sovereign life in my Coleman camper.
Hell yeah.
So I kind of agree. So I failed in my mission to be the anti-competition here. So I would agree on one point. AI is very, very much a useful tool inside of many contexts. But when we look into voting and investing in something as a parent, right? I would not trust this source code. I would not trust the investors selling us dreams about it. Like they said earlier, cross-referencing anything you're looking into is always key. Look into every single article. Don't just be a biased source and choose one angle, because it does have a double-edged sword thing about it. But final words, did Uber Eats get rid of the stove? I think not, but it is a convenient alternative to cooking. So did it tank the kitchens of America? Not really. So it could be good, could be bad, but only time will tell. And invest in yourself and others, and always, like Rob says, seek truth, no matter how much it may be a hard pill to swallow, for sure. That's
Gio,
always.
thanks so much, man. It's always a pleasure. We'll talk soon, man.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry to rush people along. I got like 9 minutes. I got a heart out. Evan, I'm so sorry, man. We got like 4 minutes here. What's on your mind today, man?
Well, I saw something that was a bit of an eye-opener. I like learning about different religions, and especially old, depreciated ones, but something I learned recently, which has me a bit startled a bit, is in Judaism, there's a general idea of making the world a better place. And I thought that's what it basically meant. But in more recent years, due to Kabbalah mysticism, they believe it as a more social justice aspect. And that is a bit of a problem, where I think of the other night with the debate between Andrew and that other person, he had a weird sort of perspective, which deep down, I had a certain feeling, even though I had no proof about it. I just had a feeling. And it sort of explains where, like, if you look at that sort of ideology, it can be if it can be completely atheistic along with culturally that thing, who's to say that it can't be Christian or whatever thing? So if that's a major pillar that is barely even fought against with like the more conservative aspects, that is something that has me a little frightened, because I thought like the pushing of like the woke shit was like stuff to completely destroy a society. I had no idea that the people themselves actually drank their own Kool-Aid and believed in like this sort of cultural suicidal force. So
yeah, it really is, and I think that Christianity is uniquely susceptible to this, because if you accept that so much of Christianity is, Zach says for $10, Zach says Kabbalah mysticism isn't Judaism; it's a small sect of Judaism. Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. People could take these religions and then they could shoehorn in sort of this like almost like. I hate to use the word on YouTube, so self-defeating empathy, right? Yep. And we can see this. You can see when it comes to sort of so much of the social justice movement, it's couched in this veneer of like, oh, equity and equality, but so much of it is just petty revenge. So much of it is, you were evil, your ancestors were evil, and now we get to be evil to you. And like, I think this is evident, like when we're talking about like punishment for sins of the fathers, things of that nature. I talk about this a lot. Orwell said this when he was writing The Road to Wigan Pier. He had all of these people in England that paid him to write this. And the first half of the book's like, look, yeah, the socialists have a point. These workers live in a miserable plight. And the second half of the book was, but these socialists that paid me don't give a shit. They don't care at all. They're utilizing that, right, to get your empathy so that they can attack their opponents. And those are the people that have more than them. And I think that you certainly see this with Christianity to the effect like John Fogelson's the guy you're talking about, where it's like, you know, this sort of turn the other cheek aspect, forgiveness aspect, right? And it's like, well, it's a stone's throw from that, from saying like, and you have done something, and your ancestors have done something, and therefore, it's not just turn the other cheek, it's now you owe them. Right now, you owe these people, right? And you can see how quickly he bastardized it to be like, so open borders, right? Jesus would welcome all, so we have to welcome all. And who are you to consolidate? Meanwhile, is John Fogelson giving up his wealth? Of course not. He's working for people like Kamala Harris, right? He would never suggest. If we take that to the logical extreme, we would be like, well then, if there's any homeless person anywhere in the world and you have any convenience that's not just the bare minimum, you would get rid of your conveniences. Right? And so, yeah, I think you make a great point. I would love to talk to you more about it. I would. I'm so sorry that I got a hard out here. But call in tomorrow, and I think it's a great area of topic. I agree with you. I share your concern. I'll give you the last word here, though.
And the thing is that I didn't research this from other people. I saw it from the people themselves. And it is, they explain it, and they explain it like it's some noble thing, in how they like go through a bunch of societal movements saying, this is why we did it. And it's like, that caused serious major problems to the society, including societal friction. But they're like, whatever. It's a good thing. But thank you, Rob.
Hey, Evan, always a pleasure, man. We'll talk soon. Thanks for the $2. Tikkun Olam is the context that you're saying. So thank you so much. Lastly, we got Ulix. What's happening today, my friend? I only got like 4 minutes. I'm so sorry.
Well, I feel really, my topic is super mundane compared to the existential crisis that was just put in my lap.
That's my life, man. Everything about my life's mundane. It feels great.
So, I mean, I'll try to put it in the context of, if we're going to prepare for the future and save money for the incoming economic burden, let's say, no financial advice given here.
Sure.
But my topic is car batteries. So,
okay.
If you work, or if you're a plain person like most of us are here, and you buy car batteries from Walmart, you'll see, they have grades, right? So it's silver, gold, mega, diamond grade, or whatever.
Sure.
They're all the same battery.
Really?
What you're buying is a warranty. So the silver is 1 year warranty. Gold is 2 years. Diamond is 3 years. And so, I mean, you can look up the manufacturers of any of these batteries, and basically there's only 3 in the world shipping like 90+% of all batteries. And all batteries are functionally the same, especially in the lead acid battery world. But all lead acid batteries are functionally the same. But what you're buying at Walmart is the warranty. So if you live in a moderate climate, buy the cheapest battery because it doesn't matter.
This guy claims you're full of shit. He says he's a mechanic, and that's not true. What do you say? Obviously, we don't have time to get into a big debate, but I don't know.
I'm not saying that there's not different grades of lead acid batteries, because obviously an Optima battery is going to be far better than any other lead acid battery that you can find in Walmart. But like I work in a battery plant, so we get the same model, 3 different stickers. Okay, they need 3 gold stickers today. Oh, they need the silver stickers today.
I would. So he says he'll grant that the caveat of lead acid to AGM fund. I will say this, and I'm so sorry I don't have more time. Obviously, you can call tomorrow. We can talk more about this. So there's this place called, like, you got your Home Depot, you got your Lowe's. Have you ever heard of Harbor Freight?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been told Harbor Freight sells cheaper tools, right? And which is fine by me because I'm not very handy, so I just need a drill. I'm not running it, 50 times a week. I've been told by people that's like, did you know a lot of those products at places are actually the same product with just a different label on them? And the same's true of, like, if you go to, like, sort of these, like, discount grocery stores. A lot of it's just like Cheerio, maybe not Cheerios, but you get the idea. It's a product, and they literally just put a different label on it, and then they could sell it cheaper. And so I've heard that. So I wouldn't, obviously not the same thing that you're talking about here, but the idea of sort of a lot of these products, being the same as what you're elsewise told that the more expensive one are. I hear it. I'll give you real quick the last word. I got to be out in like 30 seconds, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, we manufacture different brands of batteries too. Like we do the acid in Toyota, in Interstate, in Optima, in these generic Walmart batteries. It's all the same. We're using the same parts, same acid. We charge it the same way.
All right, man. I'm so sorry. I think I have a debate tonight, so I was on. Well, hey, hopefully we'll talk soon. I appreciate it, and I would be happy to talk more about this. I really would. So I gotta go. I gotta go pick up my son. So take it easy, man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to rush people along. Now, we didn't quite get to our goal. Now, as I play the outro, though, I'm sure someone's going to donate the $140 necessary, $145 necessary to get us to the goal. So don't even have to talk about that. You guys did fantastic. Thanks to all my callers. Thanks to all my mods. Thanks to my editor, Black Elk. Thanks to Spiro, who helps me out with tech issues. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk to him at some point this week or next week, try to help out with some of these audio issues and some other things going on with my computer. I appreciate you all. We're going to be raiding over to Jim Bob, so stick around for that. Tell him I said hi. I appreciate you all. I'm supposed to be doing a debate around 8 p.m. tonight. It's supposed to be on the Insurrection Act. We'll see how that goes. Until then, thank you guys so much. Have a good one. And as always, God bless Charlie Kirk and his family.
Only in America is it possible to say, you know what, I don't like the way the country is going, and to do something about it. Take that risk. Take that leap of faith. Stay involved. Trust God and act obediently. Romans 12:2 verse, that God will use all things for good for those who love him. It's bigger than you. I want you to remember that. It is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. You are here to make somebody else's life better, the pursuit of liberty and freedom. You know what gives me strength? The hundreds of thousands of you that say, Charlie, keep going. 1 Corinthians 5 and 15. So that's all pretty amazing evidence, not just intra-biblical evidence, but extra-biblical evidence that Jesus Christ was a real person. He lived a perfect life. He was crucified, died, and rose on the third day, and he is Lord and God of all.